Chapter 353, Earth-Shattering, Immortal Dynasty Banquet? Of course you can. Who do you want to choose? Do you want to go take a look now? Xiao Chuan readily agreed, even rising to his feet. Guan hurriedly said, "Don't rush, not now." Xiao Chuan replied, "Just to take a look, what if someone catches your eye right now?" "No rush, the disciple I want to take in hasn't been born yet." Guan waved his hand, and every time he expounded the Tao to Xiao Chuan's fate kept changing, which also caused the fate of the Xiao Chuan residents to change. "I see." Xiao Chuan sat back down, thoughtfully. In recent years, he often entered a mysterious state, and in that state, his cultivation perplexities that he couldn't figure out would be easily resolved, giving him a feeling of enlightenment. Now that he thought about it, could it have something to do with his senior brother? He was so ordinary. His only blessing was his senior brother. If not for his senior brother's primordial reincarnation skill, he might already have been buried in the ground. Guan began to talk about significant events in the immortal cultivation world, quickly drawing Xiao Chuan's interest. It wasn't until nightfall that Guan left. He headed to the 8 scenic caves, prepared to spend the night alone. He lay under the green vine tree, his divine thought piercing through the mountains, spying beyond the heavens. Ever since the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor had suddenly descended, the Holy Court had dispatched a bunch of great cultivators to patrol the outer realms. These individuals, with their cultivation levels at the very least in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, also made the traversing heaven and earth flying immortals feel nervous. The news of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor's attack on the Holy Court also spread, and no one knew what had exactly happened. Nonetheless, someone being able to burst into the Holy Court was enough to shock all sects in the world. Guan could feel a tense atmosphere pervading the great heaven and earth, but what it was specifically due to, he could not say for sure. Anyway, as his divine thought swept across, the world was still peaceful. It's worth mentioning, after the Heaven Sect's leader passed away, Yang Jian returned to the Holy Court. How he is faring now is unknown. Without the great Nether Saint King, Yang Jian should be able to regain his identity as the Holy King. Guan was curious. How does a reincarnated being like him recover his previous cultivation? Does it involve recultivating? Currently, it seems Ji Xiaoyu doesn't need to recultivate. The primordial Taoist talisman contains vast mana and can restore her to her peak state at any time. Thinking this, Guan considered experiencing lifespan samsara once more. But he held back. He couldn't keep wasting his lifespan. He needed to gather 1 billion years of lifespan as soon as possible and then make a breakthrough. 2 divine immortals of wondrous dharma had already appeared, making him feel uneasy just thinking about it. He must be the highest realm in his environment, otherwise he felt no sense of security. 1 billion years, he thought, I need to step it up. Having decided to sprint towards 1 billion years of lifespan, Guan began to keep busy. He used Immortal Seeking Island to collect more high-rank medical herbs and expanded the medicinal herb production at Dingtian Peak. The holy salary from the Holy Court had also been delivered by a heaven and earth flying immortal, who handed it over to Guan, incarnated as Sword Venerable Fu Dao, at the edge of the continent. It's undeniable that the benefits of a 3rd-grade heavenly position were terrifying. 1 million supreme-grade spirit stones, 100 vials of extremely high-grade spirit pills, as well as a large batch of medicinal herb seeds. This also advanced the process of accumulating lifespan for Guan. Every day of Guan's life became busy, either running around or teaching in Xen cultivation, expounding the Tao for Yilan, Xiao Chuan, and Zhenqin. In the blink of an eye, 30 years had swiftly passed by. In the early autumn of this year, Outer World Cave welcomed a significant harvest, and Guan successfully reaped 50 million years of lifespan. Currently, he could only harvest up to 8th-rank medicinal herbs. 9th-rank medicinal herbs would need even more time to grow. Feeling elated, Guan walked into Medicine Valley, humming a tune under his breath. Gazing at the nearly 750 million years of lifespan, he couldn't help but smile. From a distance, he spotted the figures of Shenxinzi and Long Qing. Their master-disciple relationship had long been made public. No matter how Shenxinzi taught, Long Qing just couldn't muster a speck of spiritual power. Presently, Long Qing was on the path of physical cultivation. One had to admit, an innate immortal spirit truly was formidable. Even at 60, Long Qing's strength was terrifying, capable of contending with a core formation realm blood prison great saint. Guan had raised the cultivation level of blood prison great saint to the core formation realm, and Enzin's cultivation had similarly risen to the core formation realm, while his own was at the nascent soul realm. Enzin's actual cultivation level had already reached the 7th layer of the nascent soul realm. Previously, the restrictions of the primordial reincarnation skill were lifted, and coupled with Gu Anna's regular Tao explications, her maximum lifespan had increased to 570 years. Gu An saw Long Qing's face full of excitement. It seemed that today he had made progress on the physical cultivation path. "Master!" Upon seeing Guan, Long Qing immediately called out and waved at him. Shen Xinzi also nodded in greeting toward Guan. Guan walked towards them, prepared to chat and inquire about Long Qing's cultivation progress. Just at that moment, the earth trembled violently, causing panic among everyone in the valley. Shen Xinzi frowned and immediately stamped his foot. A golden light burst from his body, rapidly expanding and covering the entire Third Medicine Valley. With that, peace returned to the valley and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. This was the first time Long Qing felt the mana of Shen Xinzi. He turned his head to look at Shen Xinzi, full of admiration. A golden glowing Shen Xinzi, like a sage Buddha present on earth, radiated a domineering divine might. Gu An acted out his part while his divine thought peered into the distance. The entire Taizong continent was trembling, and even the surrounding oceans were brewing towering waves. The source of all this was a distant continent, where lightning flashed and fierce winds raged. Gu An's divine thought quickly locked onto a figure. The person hovered midair. Below him, thousands of miles of mountains lay in ruins, the sky permeated with billowing dust, churning like fog. This was a heaven and earth flying immortal. His chi blood was soaring wildly. He seemed to have cultivated a formidable physique, in Gu An's judgment no less formidable than Yang Jian's mystic gang dominator body. Gu An saw that many great cultivators were rushing towards this heaven and earth flying immortal. He didn't look any further and quickly withdrew his divine thought. Striding toward Shen Xinzi, he asked anxiously, "What happened?" Shen Xinzi looked into the distance, his expression grave. Long Qing spoke up, "Master, don't be afraid. With my second master here, even if the sky falls, there's nothing to fear." He now had a blind worship for Shen Xinzi, and was so excited that when he said this, he had a bragging tone, which made Gu An want to laugh. Gu An showed a smile, a look of relief on his face, then inquired about Long Qing's cultivation progress. Once the topic turned to this, Long Qing immediately became energized, claiming that he had just mastered a powerful fist technique that could punch and shatter a 30-foot-high hill. Shen Xinzi didn't pay attention to the master and disciple. He vanished into thin air. Elsewhere, Ji Xiaoyu stepped out of her house, looking towards the horizon. A defying blood treasure body, a rare sight indeed. The great heavenly spirit land sure still holds its roots deep. Perhaps when the day comes for the holy court to fall, this land may soar instead. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor appeared beside Ji Xiaoyu, chuckling teasingly. Ji Xiaoyu turned her head to look at him and asked, "The holy court is so strong, how could it possibly fall?" The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, arms crossed in front of his chest, replied with a closed-eye smile, "That's not a given. The most powerful forces also have their times of demise. The Holy Court has existed for too long and is approaching its calamity. This is also one of the reasons for Shengshen's reincarnations." Without waiting for a reply, Ji Xiaoyu glanced at the distant figure of Gu and then asked, "Can you predict when the Holy Court's calamity will come?" "That I cannot do. The secrets of heaven must not be revealed. Though my cultivation is high, I still stand no different than mortal spirits when facing the heavenly Tao," said the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor with a shake of his head. "Wait and see, a good show is about to begin soon." As soon as the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor finished speaking, he vanished from the spot. Ji Xiaoyu's brows furrowed. She did not believe in any good show. The good show the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor spoke of was surely some kind of catastrophe, involving the Holy Court, definitely no trivial matter. An ancient hour later, the trembling of the Titan continent finally stopped. The shaking had caused many commoners to lose homes and lives, and even the creatures within the forests were affected. All the major sects were sending disciples down the mountain to save the distressed. This had nothing to do with Guan. If an enemy that common beings couldn't withstand attacked the continent, he might still lend a hand, but he wouldn't intervene in disasters akin to natural calamities. Intervening too much would only lead to expectations, and if Guan chose not to intervene in the future, it would be seen as wrongdoing. He couldn't let the common beings believe that he was obligated to protect everything. In the lives of mortals, calamities are unavoidable and their magnitude varies. By evening, Guan saw the heaven and earth flying immortal do battle with the great cultivators of various sects, even startling the main city of the Broken Sea domain and forcing the carefree primordial immortal to take action. This individual's physique was indeed strong. Even besieged by a group of heaven and earth flying immortals, he held his ground until the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma intervened, at which point he was subdued. Captured by the Holy Court, his fate was uncertain. Guan didn't pay it much mind. Beings that shook heaven and earth popped up from time to time in this world. It's just that in the past, the Broken Sea domain was too far away to be affected. As years passed by, another 5 years went by. On Mortal World Peak, Dingtian Peak. Within the courtyard, Guan listened to Zhu Xinglan's report while an Exen cultivated at his side. The Immortal Dynasty rarely invites all sects of the world to a gathering, and the main peak hopes you could join them, Master, to avoid any deceit, said Zhu Xinglan, his brows furrowed as he mentioned the concern. Guan held a book in his hand and nonchalantly asked, "What gathering?" "It's a banquet." The Immortal Dynasty's Yang Xian Emperor wishes to discuss the Tao with all the sects of the world and has even brought out immortal fruits, which, it said, can be harvested once every 1,000,000 years. Consuming one could enhance one's insight and refine sinews and bones. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Is that so? Well, I won't be going. All right, I'll inform the main peak, Zhu Xinglan replied without further persuasion. He wasn't worried about Guan getting into trouble. The Dingtian peak was finally rising, thanks in large part to Guan, and naturally, Zhu Xinglan didn't want him to stumble into misfortune. Hearing about the immortal fruits, Guan did want to go, but on second thought, with so many sects gathered, trouble was likely to occur. The Holy Court might intervene. By not going, he might miss out on the fruits, but going could invite trouble. Guan spoke up, instructing Zhu Xinglan to expand the medicinal herb cultivation on Dingtian Peak, claiming it was for the disciples' cultivation resources, which touched Zhu Xinglan deeply. To have such a master was truly their fortune. After Zhu Xinglan left, Guan finally put down his book. He suddenly felt a presence. Lu Lingjun. She had come to Mortal World Peak again with the Holy Mother of Western Spirit, leading a group that included a carefree primordial immortal. The Bitter Sea Buddha sect had also sent many people, likely to discuss something significant. Guan paid no heed and stood up, saying, "Anexa, it's time to go back." At his words, Anexan immediately stood up and walked towards Guan. Chapter 354 The True Immortal. The next morning, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint to the Outer Gate City, having not visited for several months. Today, he sensed the presence of an old friend and decided to take a stroll. He didn't seek out that old friend, instead wandering around the city. Nowadays, more and more people greeted him as he walked, and he couldn't help but wonder if, in 1,000 years, the Supreme Sect would be filled with his disciples. TSK, and who knows how many more years he would need to become a Supreme Elder. The Blood Prison Great Saint, having reached the core formation realm, was even more imposing, standing 2 meters tall with its blood-red fur fluttering as they walked, causing disciples along the way to frequently look back. "Master, why can't Long Qing cultivate spiritual power? Yet, his chi blood is increasing so quickly," the Blood Prison Great Saint suddenly asked. Guan was not worried about people on the street overhearing, and he casually replied, "Perhaps there's some hidden reason." Upon hearing this, The blood prison great saint felt more certain of his conjecture and asked cautiously, "Is he the same as me?" Guin answered, and the blood prison great saint thought to himself that it must be true. No wonder Shinshinzi couldn't see through it. It was the master's doing all along. But why did the master seal Longqing's powers? This kid is really outrageous, his physique growing rapidly even with his cultivation sealed. Could his talent be even more terrifying than Yang Jian's? The master always finds peerless talents. On second thought, perhaps it's through the master's intervention that these people become peerless talents, like an XN, whose insight and talent grows stronger day by day. The blood prison great saint reflected silently, marveling at the unfathomable depth of his master's Tao level. After a while, he carried Guin to the heavenly repair platform. The heavenly repair platform was bustling as usual, crowded with people. Guin's eyes landed on someone concealing a 7th-layer cultivation level of the carefree immortal realm. It was Zhang Xianwang from the Immortal Dynasty. During a previous conference at the Heavenly Rankings, Zhang Xianwang had represented the Immortal Dynasty to win over Sword Venerable Fudao, meeting Guin then. Zhang Xianwang had also met with the Heaven Sect, and many years had passed, with the Heaven Sect having died. Guin wondered what Zhang Xianwang would think upon hearing this. Guin got off and walked up to the heavenly repair platform. "Hey kid, long time no see." A figure suddenly bumped into Guin's shoulder. It was Guyu. Back in the day, using the names Guyu and Guzong as father and son, Guin had written his first invigorating novel, Supreme Immortal Venerable, making Guyu famous across the world. Their friendship was excellent. After Li Ya and Wu Ju became prodigies, the best relationship Guin had was with Guyu and Zuolin. Guin rolled his eyes at him and said unenthusiastically, "Didn't we just see each other the year before last?" Guyu still looked young. He widened his eyes and exclaimed, "Have we drifted apart? Not seeing each other for 2 years. Don't you miss me?" "Definitely not. I'm afraid you'll pester me to write a book again." "Go away. Am I that shallow? By the way, have you heard about Li Ya recently? He inherited the legacy of 3 Pure Ones Mountain. It's unbelievable. They say he is now a great cultivator of Mystic Heart Realm." Guyu mentioned Li Ya, then became extremely emotional. He had become the surprised bystander character in the Supreme Immortal Venerable. That's the difference between reality and fiction. He was the brilliant protagonist in the novel, but in reality, he could only marvel at the achievements of his peers. Guin also felt emotional, admiring and respecting Li Ya. While they were chatting, Zhang Xianwang suddenly approached. Zhang Xianwang, dressed in a white robe, exuded an aura of immortality, drawing attention even on the heavenly repair platform. "Guin, little brother, long time no see." Zhang Xianwang's voice came first, radiating cheerfulness. Guin turned to look, surprised, and said, "Taoist friend Zhang, what brings you here? When did you arrive?" He immediately bypassed Guyu and walked quickly toward Zhang Xianwang. Having not seen each other for many years, Zhang Xianwang was very pleased to see Guin. He had been thinking about the little friend with the Tao pattern on his forehead and wondering how he was doing. Guyu sized up Zhang Xianwang, sensing that this person's cultivation was definitely not simple. Now at the nascent soul realm himself, his insight was far beyond what it once was. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Guin introduced Guyu to Zhang Xianwang, but unfortunately, Zhang Xianwang showed little interest and merely nodded lightly. "Why don't we find a place to talk?" Zhang Xianwang suggested, looking at Guin. After hearing this, Guin could only say goodbye to Guyu and then followed Zhang Xianwang away. Guyu watched Guinness retreating back and couldn't help muttering, "What kind of physique does this kid have? Or is it special chi fortune? How does he always attract high-level individuals?" Inside the Third Medicine Valley, many great cultivators gathered, some to play chess, others drawn by the Nine-Finger Divine Lord and Shinshinzi, making the Hall of Elders very curious about Guin. However, with LV Baishan's support, no one dared to disturb Guin. After a while, Guin followed Zhang Xianwang to an inn, choosing a window-side seat on the 3rd floor, where they were the only diners at that moment. Zhang Xianwang inquired about how Guin had been these past years, and Guin started recounting his everyday life. Though it was simple, Zhang Xianwang listened intently. He had long told Guwen that having Tao patterns, he would certainly be approached by others, but he hadn't expected Guwen to still lead such an ordinary life. The mundane things spoken from Guwen's mouth somehow became interesting to Zhang Xianwang. Hearing that the Bull Demon King could never catch up to the White Spirit Rat, Zhang Xianwang couldn't help but laugh. It was not until the server had brought all the food and drinks that Zhang Xianwang began to speak seriously, not to hide, "I come from the Immortal Dynasty." Guwen stared, asking, "Which Immortal Dynasty?" "In a far-off place, there is a continent that you call the ends of the earth. The beings there are born with cultivation of the Nirvana realm, starting with a lifespan of at least 10,000 years. Zhang Xianwang began to describe the Immortal Dynasty, leaving Guwen dumbfounded. After outlining the basics of the Immortal Dynasty, Zhang Xianwang gazed at Guwen and asked, "Would you like to join the Immortal Dynasty? I can help you reach the Nirvana realm." Guwen swallowed and asked, "Can I definitely reach it? Can I bring others along?" Zhang Xianwang glared at him and said, "I only have my eyes on you, and you want to bring others? Forget it, the Immortal Dynasty doesn't just casually accept beings from the outside." Hearing this, Guwen was immediately disappointed. Zhang Xianwang felt both amused and annoyed, looking at Guwen with even greater admiration. "Do you believe there are real immortals in the world?" Zhang Xianwang asked. Guwen answered, "Of course, there are mountain gods on our continent, and I've heard there's a heavenly court overseas." Zhang Xianwang scoffed, "The heavenly court is not the court of immortal gods. I'm talking about real immortals, like the heavenly court in Journey to the West. Our Immortal Dynasty is always seeking the true immortals, and I'll tell you the truth, we've found them. We will clear the obstacles for the immortals, winning their favor for this world." As he spoke, his face showed longing. "Real immortals?" Guwen asked nervously, "Where are they?" Zhang Xianwang raised his hand and pointed upward, then said, "Join us, or you will disappear along with the dirt of this mortal world." Outer heaven? Guwen suddenly believed it. Even if it wasn't a true immortal, it must be an extremely powerful existence, powerful enough for the Immortal Dynasty to contend with the heavenly court. But he was already a third-grade heavenly position holy sword of the heavenly court. How could he join the Immortal Dynasty? Although he had always been assigned various identities, from what Zhang Xianwang implied, did the Immortal Dynasty intend to end the world? Chapter 355. The Power of Destiny. Seeing Guwen remain silent, Zhang Xianwang continued to speak of the great strength of the Immortal Dynasty, whose history was even more ancient than the Holy Court, spanning countless epochs. The first immortal king of the mortal world was the founder of the Immortal Dynasty. He once contended against the heavens. Although he failed and caused the mortal world to be submerged by the sea, his power was undeniable. To this day, the Holy Court has not produced a being of his equal. Zhang Xianwang revealed a look of longing, surprising Guwen. The Immortal King was actually the founder of the Immortal Dynasty. If that was the case, why didn't they pursue the Immortal King crown? Was it because the Immortal King crown would devour vitality? Guwen pondered, suddenly feeling that the Immortal King crown might hold secrets. Thinking carefully, the Immortal King crown had weakened so much that even the souls of the Mahayana realm could not fully suppress it. Many changes must have occurred over the long years. After a while, when Zhang Xianwang paused, Guwen took a deep breath and asked, "Did you come to the Supreme Sect specifically for me? It should not be, right? To rally Sword Venerable Fudao?" But Sword Venerable Fudao had already declined. Zhang Xianwang smiled, his gaze turning towards the window. "Of course not, but I cannot tell you my purpose for the time being." Guwen seemed to think of something, his divine thought probing out, quickly covering the broken sea domain. He discovered that in other continents and oceans, the immortal spirits of the Immortal Dynasty hid their chi fortune deeply, but they could not escape the eyes of a true immortal's divine thought. He elevated his divine thought further, covering a broader expanse of heaven and earth. Looking from a macroscopic perspective, the immortal spirits of the Immortal Dynasty were scattered all over the world, spying on chi fortunes, their fortunes as numerous as the stars in the universe. What was the Immortal Dynasty planning? While thinking, Guwen responded, "Thank you for your kindness, Taoist friend, but I cannot abandon the supreme sect, I apologize. Zhang Xianwang turned his gaze towards Guwen, smiling. No rush, you still have time to consider. I will stay at the supreme sect for a few years. Guwen nodded, and then Zhang Xianwang changed the subject, and the two began to drink together. The wind outside the window suddenly became stronger, blowing the grasses on the windowsill. Zhang Xianwang's arrival did not stir up any storm at the supreme sect, which remained calm, but, of course, that was only on the surface. Each disciple was still experiencing their own rivers and lakes and struggles. 7 days later, Guwen took an Exen again to the mortal world peak, where they first roamed around, picking medicinal herbs along the way. Along the way, Guwen ran into Su Shi. After paying respects, Su Shi hooked arms with an Exen, and the two whispered aside. Because Su Shi had once helped Guwen receive Spirit Lord Lu, he would occasionally give some pointers for Su Zai's cultivation, and over time, Su Shi and an Xian had become familiar. After they chatted for a while, Guwen suddenly said, Su Shi, take an Exen to find Spirit Lord Lu, she has come again. Just do as before. Spirit Lord Lu? And Xin's eyes widened beneath her mask, and right after, she heard Guwen's transmitted message, her expression turning odd. She seemed to think of something, her eyes becoming excited. Then, the two women flew towards Debating Peak. Guwen roamed alone, wandering aimlessly, occasionally chatting with disciples from Dingtian Peak. He noticed that the Immortal Dynasty also had immortal spirits at the Mortal World Peak, hidden in Debating Peak without revealing any trace of the Immortal Dynasty's chi fortune, their presence unnoticed by everyone on the Mortal World Peak. Guwen did not intend to intervene. The Immortal Dynasty was plotting, certainly against the Holy Court. He could not afford to be the spearhead. The Immortal Dynasty invited various sects while arranging for immortal spirits to go to each sect. What exactly were they calculating? Guwen felt that even if the Immortal Dynasty wished to destroy the world, it seemed unlikely. In his view, the Immortal Dynasty was no match for the Holy Court. Time swiftly passed. In the evening, an Exen returned, and Guwen took her back to the Supreme Sect. As the teacher and disciple walked through the forest, an Exen removed her mask, speaking excitedly, Master, I suddenly understand the feeling of hiding one's identity. Senior Lu did not recognize me, even mistaking me for a senior. In the past, she was very respectful towards Spirit Lord Lu, never imagining that one day their positions would be reversed. She suddenly understood why her master hid his cultivation level and looked after acquaintances under a different identity. The feeling was quite wonderful. Master, if Senior Lu knew your true identity, she would definitely regret, after all the years wandering around outside, her distance from you has only increased. At the Third Medicine Valley, she could spar with you. At Mortal World Peak, even her master does not have the qualifications to meet with you. Saying this, an Xian couldn't help but feel moved, filled with gratitude. Seeing Spirit Lord Lu today, she realized once again how lucky she was. Compared to Spirit Lord Lu, she had not sacrificed much, yet she had achieved a status Spirit Lord Lu could not even dream of. Think no more of it, your teacher just wants to cultivate quietly, not getting involved in too many troubles. You too, no matter what achievements you attain, always maintain a humble heart, Guwen casually replied. An Exen nodded, I understand, Master. You care so much for Senior Lu, her future achievements will surely be great. I'm just reflecting on how different choices lead to different paths. By the way, Master, is the Bitter Sea Buddha sect powerful? Compared to Mortal World Peak, which is stronger. Those high monks seem very strong, their presence even more formidable than Shinzin's. I wonder what they are doing at Mortal World Peak, she began to ask endlessly. In reality, she wasn't looking for answers but merely wanted to express her feelings. Guwen listened to her speak, not continuing the conversation. He also felt emotional. The emotion was about how different realms perceive different worlds. Spirit Lord Lu was pursuing her path of immortal cultivation, and Exen was carefree under his protection, each living their own life. But how could they know that a catastrophe was about to unfold across the world? If the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court went to war, it would surely affect the entire world. In front of these two colossal entities, the lives of beings seemed so fragile. Focus on your cultivation. Regardless, Spirit Lord Lu is still the goal you strive for, Guan said, looking ahead. Yes, I will work hard, not to let down the favor you show me now, Master. An Exian stated resolutely, her eyes determined, her heart full of anticipation. Under the blue sky, imposing mountains stood tall, the breeze blowing, birds soared freely. And Hao, dressed in blue and white, stood halfway up the mountain, his head tilted upward, observing a figure at the summit. The figure was tall, his entire body emitting a red glow. Looking closely, flames surged within the red glow. This man, wrapped in flames, had an imposing bearing and an indifferent expression. His luxurious clothing gave off an otherworldly vibe. He looked down at Hao, saying, "Innate immense chi fortune, your life grid emits an imperial aura. Join the immortal dynasty, you have a destiny with us." And Hao squinted, responding, "The immortal dynasty?" Claiming to be immortal, quite arrogant. He twisted his neck as flames rose on his body. The flame primordial treasure body. His aura soared, causing the mountain beneath him to shatter, dust rising like smoke, rocks flying chaotically. Seeing this, the man at the summit smiled, appreciation shining in his eyes. "You seem yet to uncover your true physique," the man in the red glow spoke. "What do you mean?" And Hao asked, sensing no hostility from the other. He did not rush to attack. "If you can cultivate the flame primordial treasure body, it means your innate physique is incredibly strong. You possess a physique surpassing the ancient treasure body. Unfortunately, no one has helped you uncover this point. Join the immortal dynasty. With such chi fortune, you are naturally the darling of heaven and earth. Only the immortal dynasty can help you grow better." The red glow man paused, then continued. "In the immortal dynasty, our citizens are born in the nirvana realm. Our emperor has reached the 8th realm of the immortal path. Don't you want to know why your talent is so strong? Perhaps you were born an immortal spirit. Why not join us in pursuing the true immortal?" And Hao listened, his expression changing. Born in the nirvana realm? The 8th realm of the immortal path? And Hao, having adventured across the seas for many years, was encountering such a powerful force for the first time. He became interested in the immortal dynasty, yet he did not easily believe the other's words. If the immortal dynasty is indeed so powerful, I indeed could join, but before that, you must first defeat me. And Hao leaped up, flying to the sky, his flames intensifying, as if a bright sun had suddenly appeared in the sky, illuminating the land. The red glow man looked up, a smile on his face. He spoke, "Then are you ready to face the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma?" Divine immortal of wondrous Dharma? And Hao instinctively frowned, his expression suddenly changing. As the year drew to a close, Guan was discussing paintings with Shenzhen in his house. As they chatted, he suddenly lost interest, feigning attention to Shenzhen while using his divine thought to explore what his old acquaintances were doing. Leah was still at 3 Pure Ones Mountain, seeking path enlightenment, cultivating some divine skill. Jiang Qiong was negotiating tensely with senior members of other sections. Wu Ju was training in Demon Land, accompanied by a woman. Guan caught them being intimate, startling him enough to quickly move his divine thought away. Broad daylight, with grass as their mat, unexpectedly bold. Guan remarked internally, then looked towards others. Yi Lan and Zhen Qin were investigating a mysterious case regarding a subsect, quite troubled. Hold on. Where was Hao? Guan immediately pursued Hao's chi, finding that the young man had already left the Broken Sea domain, flying towards the ends of the earth. And Hao was accompanied by the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. An immortal spirit from the immortal dynasty? Guan eavesdropped on their conversation, soon learning that Hao intended to join the immortal dynasty. He suddenly felt the power of destiny. Yang Jian went to the holy court, and Hao to the immortal dynasty. The two had previously agreed to spar at the Heavenly List convention. Could it really be that when they meet, it would be on the battlefield? Guan merely contemplated not stopping Hao. Though he felt the immortal dynasty had slim chances, since the dynasty had existed for so many years, it certainly had some depth. If and how were unwilling, he would have called out for his teacher in his mind. After a while, Gu-in withdrew his divine thought. Recently, when painting, I thought of a scene I want to capture, yet I fear it might provoke heavenly wrath. Should I paint it? Shenzhen suddenly asked. Gu-in shook his head. Don't paint it, just tell me. Shenzhen inhaled deeply, his voice mysterious. I envisioned a scene with two figures confronting each other. One like the brilliant sun, the other sovereign of all under heaven. They stand above the 9 heavens, blades clashing. Chapter 356. Yuan Su, the immortal ancestor, initiates reincarnation. Hearing Shenzhen's words, Gu-in laughed and asked, "What do you think it is? A prophecy?" Shenzhen rolled her eyes at him, saying, "It just popped into my mind out of nowhere. That vision was so shocking that I still get goosebumps thinking about it. Whether it's a prophecy or not, I'm not sure. If you think of anything else in the future, keep me updated," Gu-in continued with a smile. "I'm quite curious about what will happen to the two figures you spoke of." Gu-in thought of An Hao and Yang Jian. However, their cultivation levels weren't that high yet. To reach full maturity, who knows how many years it would take? Could it be the ruler of the immortal dynasty, Yang Xian Emperor, and Shengtian? That's not right either. Where could Shenzhen's Tao level reach to predict the confrontation of the 8th or 9th heavens of immortal path? Shenzhen nodded, suddenly getting excited. "Gu-in, do you think I could be the reincarnation of an immortal? I'm so unique. Nowhere in the world is there a second person who can achieve path enlightenment through writing and painting, and I can even foresee visions that seem to hint at the secrets of heaven." The more she spoke, the more excited she became, her eyes shining. By the end, she even stood up, hitting the table with her hand. She looked down at Gu-in, who was still seated, and asked eagerly, "Gu-in, do you think I can be considered the protagonist in your novel?" Gu-in's face twitched as he asked, "Are you trying to be awkward?" Shenzhen often heard him use some baffling terms, but now she understood his meaning. Shooting Gu-in a glare, she sat back down and drifted into wild flights of fancy, a dazed smile on her face. Gu-in couldn't be bothered to respond again. He picked up his writing brush and started writing. Nowadays, he spent most of his time on medicinal herbs. Having some rare leisure, he was ready to write a book just for fun. Perhaps in the future, he could release the other 3 of the 4 great classics, rewritten as immortal cultivation versions. Zhang Fei's roar at Changban Slope, scaring to death 1,000,000 heavenly demons. Lu Zhishan uprooting the world tree, Wu Song fighting the demon emperor. Lin Dai's tears, a downpour of bitter rain across the heavens. The thought was exhilarating. Gu-in laughed, a touch of melancholy inevitably rising in his heart. Where on earth could his previous life be? In this life, he had no parents, no family, leaving his heart forever empty, with a feeling of not knowing where he came from. Perhaps it was because of this loneliness that he cherished every person close to him so dearly. For a time, the room fell into silence, with both people lost in their own thoughts. The immortal spirit of the immortal dynasty spread throughout the mortal world without causing chaos, and the great sects did not perceive any clues. Just like that, another 10 years passed. In the summer of that year, at 412 years old, Gu-in had just returned from Tianya Valley. He sat down on a chair and stretched lazily. He was about to take out Green Hero Travelogue, when he felt something and had to pick up the array formation record to flip through. Before long, there were hurried footsteps outside the door. The door was pushed open and Yu Yingying rushed in. She came to the table, slammed a book down on it, and glared at Gu-in with unrestrained anger. "How could you dare to write the Prime Minister's death?" 9 years earlier, Gu-in published Romance of the Three Kingdoms, set against an immortal cultivation backdrop. Heroes, scholars, and warriors were all cultivators. It swept through the immortal cultivation world in just a few months after its release. Pan and Long Silent rose to fame with his new writing, and the influence of Romance of the Three Kingdoms continued to expand, having spread overseas. The Taoyuan Oath of Brotherhood became a beautiful tale in the world, and the immortal cultivation world even started a trend of sworn brotherhood. The tales of the demon god Lu Bu fighting 3 great immortals of Lu Guanzhong at Tiger Prison Pass also spread far and wide. To this day, the Supreme Sect released the latest volume of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, with the Prime Minister of the Shu immortal country, Zhuge Liang, dying due to the failure of the 7-star lamp. Yu Yingying had been so saddened reading this volume at the book collection hall, as the deaths of Lu Guanzhong had already grieved her. Now Zhuge Liang's death made her lose interest in Romance of the Three Kingdoms entirely, and she wanted to hammer Guan in frustration. Guan responded helplessly, "There are always regrets, aren't there? Whether an early or late death, it's all death in the end. It's not the same. He's Zhuge Liang, capable of divination and fortune-telling, able to use the power of heaven and earth to set up the 8 trigrams array. With a wave of his feather fan, he could even summon an east wind that sweeps across the great thousand world." Yu Yingying grew more agitated as she spoke, unable to resist the urge to circle around the table and lay hands on Guan. Guan quickly stood up, trying to evade her claws. As they scuffled playfully, Guan was scared downstairs. Not far downstairs, Gu Yu and Zuolin also arrived in a rush. Seeing their angry faces, Guan muttered to himself that this was no good and hastened into Ji Xiaoyu's room. Ji Xiaoyu's reputation as a prodigy had spread, and with the Ji family's support behind her, Yu Yingying, Gu Yu, and Zuolin dared not recklessly burst in. Inside the room, Ji Xiaoyu sat cross-legged on the bed in meditation, looking curiously at Guan. "What, Zhuge Liang? You've written another book?" She often cultivated in seclusion and had no time to read books. Guan didn't mind that she eavesdropped, saying with resignation, "Yes, I wrote a book. How can people trouble the author over the content of the book? Ridiculous. Can I take a look?" Ji Xiaoyu showed an interest, immediately getting off the bed. Guan nodded and approached the desk. With a wave of his right hand, stacks of books piled up on the table. Ji Xiaoyu sat down and began to flip through them. Guan paced around the room, which was filled with a faint fragrance. Following the scent, his gaze landed on Ji Xiaoyu's bed, where he saw a red kerchief. The fragrance emanated from this kerchief. This was actually an Immortal Path supreme treasure. Had Guan not explored it with his divine thought, he wouldn't have sensed it. Where did this Immortal Path supreme treasure come from? Guan felt that the restriction within the kerchief bore a resemblance to Ji Xiaoyu, and it didn't seem like it was a result of a latter recognition of a master. Could it be that this supreme treasure was refined by Ji Xiaoyu in her past life? In that case, Ji Xiaoyu's past life must have been at least at the level of the 9 heavens of Immortal Path. That made sense. Without such a cultivation level, how could she make the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor of the 8th floor of Divine Thought True Immortal Realm obey her every command? Now, the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor still resided within the 3rd Medicine Valley, seldom leaving. Once Yu Yingying and the others dispersed, Guan planned to leave. Ji Xiaoyu had already been captivated by Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and did not hold Guan back. After leaving the room, Guan didn't go upstairs but rode the Blood Prison Great Saint to inspect Medicine Valley. An XN was absorbing qi and cultivating below the mystic pure tree. Long Qing and Shenxinzi were refining their bodies in the forest, and the other disciples were also busy with their tasks. Looking around, the entire Medicine Valley thrived, satisfying Guan. Not long after the Blood Prison Great Saint had walked away, a vast aura enveloped the entire great heavenly spirit land. Guan looked up and saw a figure appear above the great heavenly spirit land, located just beneath the light layer of outer heaven, yet within the confines of the sky of the great heavenly spirit land. A divine thought true immortal. I am Yuanshu's celestial ancestor from the immortal dynasty, facing the end of my life. I wish to descend a grand vow for all beings with my 30 million years of Tao cultivation. My great Tao will transform into immortal rain to help beings achieve enlightenment. My physical body will open the path of reincarnation, where mortal souls can have a destination. A majestic voice echoed throughout the great heavenly spirit land. Everyone inside the 3rd Medicine Valley looked up in amazement. Following that, Guan saw Yunshu's celestial ancestor spread his arms wide, bursting with bright light, instantly overshadowing the luminance of the 7 suns outside heaven. Countless figures soared out toward the holy court in an attempt to reach Yuanshu's celestial ancestor, but it was too late. Looking up, Guan saw the brilliant light in the sky overpower all else, drowning both him and the blood prison great saint beneath. 30 million years of Tao cultivation? Can that be true? The blood prison great saint asked in shock. He couldn't fathom living 30 million years, let alone attaining such a level of cultivation. And then there were the words, immortal dynasty, which sounded extraordinary in themselves. Could there be any force stronger than the holy court in the great heaven and earth? Before the bright light had faded, heavy rain started to fall. As everyone's vision was restored, they saw golden clouds above, shedding golden rain. As the golden rain washed over them, all creatures felt refreshed, and sensed their own cultivation levels slightly increasing. The world was astir, supreme sect buzzed with earth-shaking noise. Is this rain real? Immortal dynasty, Yuanshu celestial ancestor, am I dreaming? Quickly sit and cultivate energy, it really can increase your cultivation. Immortal dynasty? Could it be the heavenly court from Journey to the West? Pand and wasn't just making it up, there really is a force where immortals and gods gather. The disciples in the Third Medicine Valley also excitedly discussed. Some immediately sat down to cultivate their energy, while others hesitated, fearing it could be a plot. Gu N's gaze pierced through the golden clouds, looking towards Yuanshu's celestial ancestor. In that dazzling light, Yuanshu's celestial ancestor's body exploded and, following that, transformed into a stream of air, swirling into a vortex that gradually solidified. Indistinctly, Guan felt a certain rule of heaven and earth moving closer to that vortex. This rule was connected to the soul, prompting him to think of 2 words. Reincarnation. To think there was a divine thought true immortal who would sacrifice himself to open the path of reincarnation. Even in the reincarnation evolution, Guan had not seen such an event. After this event, the name of Immortal Dynasty became renowned throughout the world, informing all beings of their existence and, moreover, ensuring they would remember their favor. Should the Holy Court attack the Immortal Dynasty now, it might shake their image in the hearts of all beings. Guan raised his right hand to feel the golden rain. Suddenly, he saw Zhang Xianwang soaring into the sky, flying to the airspace of the Taizong continent. Hovering in the air, Zhang Xianwang began to expound the Tao. At the sound of his celestial voice, everywhere on the continent, regardless of what people were doing, all stopped in their tracks, immersed in a mystical state. It wasn't only the Taizong continent. Guan saw immortals spread throughout the world beginning to expound the Tao, which also alarmed the main cities of the Holy Court in every domain. The great cultivators of Holy Court rapidly surrounded those expounding immortals, but no one dared to act rashly. As the thoughts of the masses were linked by the sound of the immortal's voice, the immortals need only a thought to implant voices and images into the minds of all beings. The blood prison great saint beneath Guan also entered a path enlightenment state, lying down unconsciously. There's even this kind of method, Guan mused inwardly. He stayed on the back of the beast, pretending to be in a state of enlightenment with a vacant look in his eyes. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor walked out from inside the house, looking towards Zhang Xianwang with a slight frown. The Immortal Dynasty, to think they would sacrifice a divine thought true immortal. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor was also stunned by the magnanimity of Yuanshu's celestial ancestor. Having lived more than 15 million years himself, he had never seen such an event. Regardless of whatever Yuanshu's celestial ancestor's ulterior motives might be, this act truly benefited the masses. Copious golden rain fell through, penetrating rooftops and mountains. No matter where one was, every being could receive the blessings of the golden rain and hear the expounding voice of the immortals. Chapter 357. Great Merit. Decree from an immortal Lord. Golden rain that enveloped the whole world persisted for an entire ancient hour before it ceased and all creatures awakened. Meng Lang's divine thoughts swept across the area and discovered that the Supreme Sect's disciples' cultivation levels had all increased. However, the extent of growth varied, possibly relating to their innate talents. The one with the most significant increase in cultivation had merely broken through a minor realm, not enough to trigger a breakthrough in a major realm. He patted the groggy blood prison great saint, then turned and walked towards the loft buildings. Along the way, he continually cast life span detection towards his disciples and found that after the baptism of the golden rain, their maximum lifespans had increased as well, some by only a year or two, others by several decades, though he saw no one whose lifespan increased by more than a century. Even without anyone gaining a century of lifespan, it was still remarkable, considering the communal spirit of great heavenly spirit land were countless in number. What an immense act of merit! Meng Lang couldn't help but admire the Tao Void mysterious immortal while simultaneously puzzled about how he managed to achieve this. Meng Lang directed his divine thoughts towards the immortal dynasty and felt its chi fortune plummet dangerously. Could it be that the Tao Void mysterious immortal had managed to accomplish this by borrowing the immortal dynasty's chi fortune? Wouldn't such an act leave them vulnerable to the holy court taking advantage? Meng Lang was secretly astonished. Soon after, he felt the chi fortune of the immortal dynasty surge enormously, surpassing its previous levels in a very short time. Light from outer heaven followed, showering down golden radiance upon the immortal dynasty, forming a massive and magnificent rainbow in the sky. Meng Lang could sense a particular force within that golden radiance. It was like the heaven and earth rules, yet there was something unique about it. It felt more like chi fortune. Chi fortune is utterly mysterious. Those with strong chi fortune often enjoy good luck, while those with weak chi fortune may encounter disasters even in their daily walk, or easily run into inner demons during cultivation. Today, Meng Lang had truly broadened his horizons. Even as a divine thought true immortal, he could not see through the techniques displayed by Tao Void mysterious immortal, who had lived for 30 million years. What a pity that such a person had perished, for Meng Lang lost the chance to make his acquaintance. Master, what just happened? I only remember Tao Void mysterious immortal's words, and then it seemed I fell asleep. Blood prison great saint caught up and anxiously asked. You just need to know that this was indeed a blessing. Meng Lang replied. Blood prison great saint understood that his master did not wish to elaborate further. With his master's Tao level, he surely knew what was going on. He committed the names Immortal Dynasty and Tao Void Mysterious Immortal to memory. When Meng Lang arrived in front of the lofts, the disciples who were inside walked out one by one, gathering together to discuss the recent event. Shen Xinzi and a few great cultivators were surrounded by the others, but unfortunately, they were also unclear about what had actually taken place. Long Qing was shouting excitedly, causing Meng Lang to shake his head and smile wryly. This indeed was a massive opportunity. The Heavenly Tao has noticed it and will surely boost the Immortal Dynasty's chi fortune. When that happens, the immortal spirits of the Immortal Dynasty will find it easier to comprehend the nature of heaven and earth during their cultivation. The Immortal Dynasty is quite extraordinary and is full of ambition. Ji Xiaoyu approached Meng Lang and murmured thoughtfully. Meng Lang, driven by curiosity, asked, Then in your opinion, wouldn't the Immortal Dynasty become stronger than the Holy Court? Does the Holy Court have anyone who can achieve such a feat? It's hard to say, but as the saying goes, two tigers cannot share one mountain. It's likely that a conflict will break out between them. As for whether the Holy Court has someone capable of this, even if it does, it's doubtful anyone would be willing. The higher the cultivation, the more tenacious the individual. Who would want to give up their Tao level to benefit all creatures? Ji Xiaoyu shook her head. The Immortal Dynasty had clearly stated this point, making it known to all creatures their sacrifice and hinting at how the Holy Court should act. It would be difficult for the Holy Court to do the same without seeming to fall short by comparison. Divine thought true immortals. Those were beings comparable to holy ministers. Such existences would not be coerced, nor would they willingly self-destruct. Meng Lang also internally marveled at the Immortal Dynasty's overt scheming. However, the battle between the two would ultimately depend on their own strength. The Immortal Dynasty's blessings to all beings, as generous as they were, could not be quickly converted into combat power for the Immortal Dynasty. Ji Xiaoyu looked up at the sky, her eyes sparkling, and she said in a special tone, "There's going to be great chaos in this world." Meng Lang could hear a hint of excitement in her voice. She seemed to be looking forward to the turmoil. Meng Lang followed her gaze into the sky. Dao Void Mysterious Immortal's physical body had turned into a huge chi-shaped vortex, toward which the lonely spirits and wild ghosts of the world were flying. The Reincarnation Vortex. Many Holy Court cultivators appeared beside the Reincarnation Vortex. They didn't destroy it but simply stood guard around it. Ji Xiaoyu didn't linger long to chat with Meng Lang, quickly returning to her abode. She couldn't wait to cultivate and grow stronger. Meng Lang joined the crowd of disciples, sharing in their awe and discussion. Shen Xinzi left the group and stood alone under a tree, looking up at the sky and calculating with his fingers, his expression complex as he muttered to himself, "The heavens has become murky, what on earth is going to happen next?" In the days that followed, the discussions around the Immortal Dynasty and Dao Void Mysterious Immortal did not subside. Meng Lang even saw the citizens throughout Taizong continent starting to build monuments and viewing platforms in honor of Dao Void Mysterious Immortal. The Golden Rain had granted many mortal spirits the opportunity for immortal cultivation, and many chronically ill mortals were healed. It was a jubilation for the whole world. 5 days later, Meng Lang visited Immortal Seeking Island alone. Island Master Sun Hanfeng, Hu Shaojian, and the elders gathered to meet him. More than 20 people were assembled in the hall, eager to recount the blessings from 5 days prior. Meng Lang sat in his chair, watching their excited expressions, and felt even more profoundly the boundless merit of Dao Void Mysterious Immortal. It wasn't just mortal spirits who were grateful to Dao Void Mysterious Immortal. Even beings of the immortal path also appreciated him. The creatures didn't care what motives Dao Void Mysterious Immortal had. Having received kindness and benefits, they naturally felt thankful. After listening for a while and confirming that nothing had gone amiss on Immortal Seeking Island, Meng Lang was relieved. He briefly spoke a few words and then took Hu Shaojian and left. He would always roam around Immortal Seeking Island whenever he visited, and Hu Shaojian would accompany him. After leaving the island master's residence, Hu Shaojian brought up the romance of the 3 kingdoms. Meng Lang had allowed Immortal Seeking Island to also start selling his books, and the effect was surprisingly good. Once released, Romance of the 3 Kingdoms was greatly loved by many cultivators. Before Dao Void Mysterious Immortal's blessing, Romance of the 3 Kingdoms was the most talked about topic on the island. The Romance of the 3 Kingdoms on Immortal Seeking Island had only reached the point in the story where LV Meng crossed the river in white clothing, and Guan Yu met his demise, which infuriated many cultivators. After Hu Shaojian finished discussing the profits from Romance of the 3 Kingdoms, he couldn't help but inquire about the upcoming plot, but alas, Meng Lang refused to divulge it, so he could only give up. As they walked, Meng Lang suddenly spotted someone and immediately cast a life-span detection spell towards the individual. Imperial Edict Immortal Lord, Dao Void Mysterious Immortal Realm 3rd Layer 3653007/4500000/11000000 Dao Void Mysterious Immortal. And he was even imbued with the Immortal Dynasty's chi fortune. Meng Lang inwardly marveled. It used to be difficult to encounter spirits of the Immortal Dynasty, but now it seemed they could be met everywhere. Dao Void Mysterious Immortals were a rare sight. Meng Lang watched as the figure approached him directly. The Imperial Edict Immortal Lord, clad in a deep purple robe, held one hand behind his waist, his long hair secured beneath a green jade crown, his countenance full of authority, his gaze even more so oppressively piercing. He came to a halt in front of Meng Lang and spoke, "Might you be the Island Master Meng Lang?" Chapter 358, Desperate Straits. "I am the Island Master," Guan asked with a puzzled face, while Hu Shaojian next to him became anxious. The Immortal Lord, at first glance, was no simple character, his aura clearly stronger than Gu's. The Immortal Lord looked at Guan and said, "Serve me, I require your island." After hearing this, Hu Shaojian couldn't help but open his mouth in shock, finding the person quite arrogant. He subconsciously looked around, his face changing drastically as he discovered that everyone nearby had stopped moving, even the flowers and grass at the side of the street no longer swayed. It was as if everything had fallen into stillness. Gu and his face turned ugly, warily watching the immortal lord. The immortal lord calmly said, "It's just a little trick to prevent others from knowing our agreement. Work for me and I will become your support. Do you know what the highest realm is?" Guin took a deep breath and said, "Heaven and earth flying immortal." The immortal lord replied, "Above the heaven and earth flying immortal realm is the carefree immortal realm, and above that is the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. My realm is even higher than the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm." As these words came out, both Guin and Hu Xiaojian's faces turned pale, with Hu Xiaojian trembling all over. The immortal lord stopped speaking, waiting for Guin's decision. Guin pretended to grit his teeth and asked, "Do I have any other choice?" The immortal lord frowned, a flash of displeasure in his eyes. "The immortal lord harbors enmity towards you and intends to kill you. Will you perform lifespan detection on him?" This quickly led to murderous intent? Guin pondered internally, feeling that this Dao void mysterious immortal was too petty. He was already on the path to his own death. The immortal lord coldly said, "You can naturally refuse. But from this day on, when you encounter insurmountable calamities, you will regret today's choice." His words dropped, and he turned to leave. The stillness around them returned to normal. Cultivators and demons continued on their way, the streets flowers and trees swaying in the wind, and birds flew in the sky. Watching the immortal lord's departing figure, Hu Xiaojian's eyes filled with fear. After the immortal lord disappeared into the crowd, Hu Xiaojian turned to Guin and asked, "Island Master, what should we do now?" Guin withdrew his gaze and said, "When soldiers come, block them. When the water comes, cover them with earth. At worst, we will take this matter to the main city of the Broken Sea domain. Don't worry." Seeing him still composed, Hu Xiaojian's nervousness and unease began to ease. Guin let Hu Xiaojian continue to lead the way. Compared to the immortal lord, he cared more about medicinal herb seeds. With the constant clashes between the immortal dynasty and the holy court, more supreme beings like the immortal lord would appear, which gave Guin a sense of urgency. He must reach a lifespan of 10 billion years and break through to a major realm as soon as possible. At dusk, the immortal lord flew out of Immortal Seeking Island. His flying speed was not fast, his divine sense covering the Broken Sea domain as he searched for islands similar to Immortal Seeking Island. In his mind, Immortal Seeking Island already belonged to him, but he needed more arrangements. The thought of Guin's rejection made him scoff. "Let's see how you deal with demon creatures above the heaven and earth flying immortal realm." The corner of the immortal lord's mouth curled in anticipation. He began to look forward to Guin kneeling on the ground, begging him to act. Sniff. Suddenly a hand landed on his shoulder, forcibly making him stop, which tremored his Taoist heart fiercely, his face changing greatly. He instinctively tried to avoid it, only to discover that the mana inside his body was suppressed by an extremely domineering force. A divine immortal. The immortal lord guessed the other's cultivation level in an instant. His vision blurred and then he found himself in a forest. He quickly realized had been taken far away from Broken Sea domain. He wanted to turn back, but he just couldn't. Boom. A domineering divine thought broke into his mind, causing his eyes to lose their luster, his entire being falling into a daze. After a while, Guin, using the supreme art of transformation into nothingness, executed the immortal lord, leaving not a trace of his soul, obliterating his body. You have successfully acquired 98,641 years of lifespan from the immortal lord, Dao Void Mysterious Immortal Realm 3rd Layer. That'll do. Holding the immortal lord's storage bracelet, Guin vanished into the woods. The demise of the immortal lord did not cause any ripples. Guin frequently used divine thought to observe the world in the days that followed. He saw battles erupting constantly across all sea domains, all between the immortal spirits of the immortal dynasty and the people of the holy court. Though the holy court had more people, The immortal spirits of the immortal dynasty had stronger fighting power in equal realms. As the number of battles increased, the tense atmosphere began to spread, overshadowing the joy people felt from the blessing of the primordial immortal ancestor. 5 years later, news of the clash between the immortal dynasty and the Holy Court had spread throughout the world, and even the lowest-ranking cultivators of the Taizong continent knew that two colossal forces were warring, and should their battlefield fall upon Taizong continent, it would be catastrophic. Perhaps because the Holy Court drew the attention of the immortal dynasty, the death of the immortal lord never triggered an investigation by the immortal dynasty. 7 years had passed since the fall of the immortal lord. That day, Guan returned from the outer gate city, having just submitted the last volume of Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Over the years, he had been suppressing his unease with Romance of the Three Kingdoms. In his opinion, the battle between the immortal dynasty and the Holy Court should not target him, and he could continue to survive quietly. But deep down, he was worried that an accident might be triggered by the Great War between the immortal dynasty and the Holy Court. If the primordial immortal ancestor could bestow blessings upon all beings, then might these two colossal entities, if they went to full-scale war, destroy the great heavenly spirit land? Each time he thought this, it made him uneasy. On his way back to the valley, Guan decided to continue to push forward. It was time to take a risk. Guan's divine thought swept across the world, searching for a sect rich in medicinal herbs. He found it difficult to kill beings with whom he had no enmity, deciding instead to help other sects harvest their herbs, taking without stealing, doing good deeds without leaving a trace. Alright, no matter the self-promotion, Guan still felt a bit ashamed. A divine immortal was engaging in such activities. But in order to survive, just this once, no one would know anyway. Soon, Guan's gaze focused on a Seabass sect. Purple Pill Palace, a sect that specialized in alchemy technique, where a great number of medicinal herbs were cultivated for the purpose of alchemy. Purple Pill Palace's strength was not very strong, but because of their alchemy technique, the nearby sects would all protect them. Let alone the nearby sects of Purple Pill Palace. Looking across the world, Guan could go wherever he wanted without being detected, apart from Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court. After returning to the valley, Guan did not act immediately but waited for nightfall. As night fell, Guan first went to Mystic Valley and then quietly left. With a single step, he directly entered Purple Pill Palace. Purple Pill Palace, sitting deep in the ocean, was a sizable continent with many mountain peaks, the tallest of which exceeded 20,000 feet. Under the dark night, there were lights on the peaks of Purple Pill Palace. Guan landed in a forest. His divine thought swept over, and at that moment, at least 400,000 disciples of Purple Pill Palace were engaged in alchemy. He walked towards the nearest medicine garden. At the edge of the medicine garden, in front of a building, an old cultivator sat in front of a pill furnace, his eyes closed, holding a fan and gently waving it, controlling the flames beneath the furnace. Guan walked past him without him noticing Guan's presence. Even if he were to open his eyes, he would not see Guan. This was the skill of the carefree primordial immortal, employed by Guan with the power of a divine immortal. Not even divine immortals could see him unless their cultivation level reached Tao Void Mysterious Immortal. He entered the garden, not picking herbs at random, only harvesting the ones close to maturation. After a while, Guan moved on to the next medicine garden without taking a single herb, simply helping with the harvesting. Purple Pill Palace was vast, and to avoid causing disturbance, Guan moved gently, which slowed down his harvesting speed. He was not in a hurry. Taking his time, he would visit each night. 15 days later, Guan had harvested all the mature medicinal herbs within Purple Pill Palace, gaining 150 million years of lifespan. He had harvested so many herbs that Purple Pill Palace eventually noticed something was wrong, falling into panic and even inviting other sects to provide protection. All of this was irrelevant to Guan. He had now set his sights on other sects, this time choosing one far away from Broken Sea Domain. On the first night, after just an ancient hour, someone detected the disturbance. This person quickly alerted the entire sect, causing all the disciples to start patrolling. Guan had to withdraw. In reality, even if discovered, Guan could have forcefully harvested, but he feared making too big a scene. Great powers were capable of divining the past of a sect, and Guan certainly did not want to draw the attention of existences like the Black Profound Emperor or the Annihilation God Emperor. Although the great heavenly spirit land seemed to be dominated by the Holy Court, who could guarantee that there were no entities hiding that were above the 9 heavens of immortal path. It is always better to be cautious. Life is precious, and if faced with an insurmountable foe, no amount of lifespan would matter. That night, among the mountains there was a large lake with sparkling waves. Closer inspection revealed many spirit flowers floating on its surface. Guan descended from the sky and began harvesting the spirit flowers. He transferred the harvested spirit flowers to the lakeshore. Just as he finished and began to fly away, he suddenly saw a figure rushing out of the woods. It was a yellow-clad young girl who ran to the lakeside. Seeing the pile of spirit flowers on the shore, she was struck as if by lightning. She stood stunned for a few breaths, then hurried over to inspect them, relieved when she saw that the spiritual energy within the flowers had not yet dissipated. She turned to look around, seeing no sign of the culprit, then crouched down and buried her head in her arms. Guan, witnessing this, was taken aback. Was this crying? Guan threw a lifespan detection towards the yellow-clad young girl. Zhu Shi, Foundation Establishment Realm 3rd Layer 17/350/9999, 9,999 years of lifespan. When visiting other sects before, Guan would cast lifespan detection on any cultivator he passed by. Below Nirvana Realm, the longest lifespan he had seen was 8,000 years. Guan took interest in Zhu Shi and didn't leave but decided to observe her further. Zhu Shi crouched for a long while before standing up. Guan expected her to seek her master or elders to deal with the situation. However, under Guan's gaze, Zhu Shi used a spell and began directly absorbing the spiritual energy from the spirit flowers. Little flowers, although I don't know who harvested you, I will avenge you, Zhu Shi murmured to herself. Chapter 359, 1 billion years lifespan. Hearing Zhu Zai's words, Guan felt quite uncomfortable. Could this fellow be planning to take this opportunity to monopolize the medicinal herbs and then slander him? Guan simply decided to continue waiting. He wanted to see what Zhu Shi would do. He watched Zhu Shi and noticed that no matter how much spiritual energy she absorbed, her cultivation level did not change at all. Her small body seemed to harbor a black hole that could devour everything. Interesting. This girl's physique is not simple. No wonder she has a lifespan of 9,999 years. After about half an hour, all the spirit flowers by the lake were drained and withered. Zhu Shi took a deep breath, then with a terrified expression she turned and left. Guan hovered in the night sky, lost in thought. The spiritual energy and medicinal effects Zhu Shi had just devoured were enough for an ordinary cultivator at the Foundation Establishment Realm to reach the nascent soul realm. Of course, in reality, a cultivator at the Foundation Establishment Realm could not have absorbed so much spiritual energy from the spirit flowers at once. Not only had Zhu Shi succeeded, but her cultivation level had not increased at all. What exactly was this physique? Guan began to recall the memories of Long Zhan and Lu Han. They had lived for hundreds of thousands of years, fought countless battles, and perhaps had seen similar physiques. Soon, Guan's brow furrowed. Could it be? An unusual glint flashed in Guan's eyes as he grew more intrigued by Zhu Shi. After a while, a large group of cultivators flew in, and when they saw the large number of withered spirit flowers by the lake, they all looked alarmed. Has there been a thief? Who dares to steal the treasures of heaven and earth from Moonfall Divine Lake? That's simply courting death. If someone could sneak into Moonfall Divine Lake and absorb the energy and medicinal effects of the purple orchid flowers all at once, their cultivation must be high. Could it be a spirit beast from the lake? Could it be the act of an immortal spirit from the immortal dynasty? Recently, they've been making a lot of noise. Listening to the seniors' discussions, Zhu Shi stood by, looking fearfully apprehensive, and nobody imagined she was the one who had absorbed the spirit of the purple orchid flowers. After a long discussion, the cultivators of Moonfall Divine Lake couldn't come to a conclusion and prepared to report the matter to the higher-ups. Before leaving, they comforted Zhu Shi not to be afraid anymore. Zhu Shi returned to her quarters by herself. Along the way, she was deep in thought, her brow tightly furrowed, occasionally looking around with vigilance, making Guan admire her acting skills and strong conviction. After entering her house, Guan saw Zhu Shi reveal a smile. From worry to contentment, the speed of her change in demeanor impressed even Guan. Seeing that Zhu Shi was about to change clothes, Guan stopped observing her, turned, and left to continue his own herb-gathering journey. That evening, Guan picked many more medicinal herbs in Moonfall Divine Lake, which added to the already tense atmosphere within. After that night, Guan did not return to Moonfall Divine Lake to gather herbs. With so many sects in the world, gathering everywhere, he could quickly accumulate a lifespan. As summer passed and autumn arrived, the third Medicine Valley was covered in a panorama of withered scenery. Guan looked at his attribute panel, a smile forming on his face, only 1 million years away from reaching a lifespan of 1 billion years. Indeed, not taking the righteous path increases lifespan more rapidly. But the sects from which Guan had gathered herbs all thought a great calamity was imminent, all on high alert. Guan purposefully chose sects far apart to prevent them from connecting and making a big fuss. Although he didn't steal those medicinal herbs, his behavior of gathering was still suspicious. Now some sects thought it was the work of demon beasts or spirit beasts, others thought it was an enemy warning them. It must be said, these sects were quite perceptive. After each of Guan's harvests, they quickly started guarding. Guan turned off the attribute panel and stood up. He flexed his muscles as his divine sense looked towards the distance. He was watching Zhu Shi from Moonfall Divine Lake. Guan was very interested in this girl whose actions were so different, feeling a sense of kinship with her. Zhu Zai's talent was extraordinary, but for now, within Moonfall Divine Lake, she was just an ordinary disciple, which is why she was responsible for guarding a lake. Guan guessed that her reason for wanting to guard the lake was to facilitate her own theft. Boom! Suddenly, a thunderous roar came from outside the window, but Guan was not startled because the source of the noise was extremely distant from the Taizong continent. The disciples within the third Medicine Valley were startled but did not panic. Instead, they started to wonder what kind of great power was clashing. The friction between the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court was increasing, almost to the point of declaring war. In Guan's view, both sides were still testing each other. Last year, Guan had seen two Dao Void mysterious immortals battle in outer heaven, generating a great commotion that caught the attention of the great cultivators of the mortal world. Guan walked downstairs. As he descended the stairs, his gaze turned towards the valley entrance where someone was coming. It was Zhang Xianwang from the Immortal Dynasty. After entering the valley, Zhang Xianwang scrutinized everything along the path. The third Medicine Valley was quite famous within the Supreme Sect, and those cultivators visiting the Supreme Sect often came to stroll through the third Medicine Valley. Guan rarely greeted them personally, given the large number of disciples within the Medicine Valley. Zhang Xianwang's gaze swept over Shenxinzi, then glanced at the nine-fingered Divine Lord, who was playing chess, thinking to himself that their reputations were indeed well-deserved. The two wandering immortals were not enough to shock him, a carefree primordial immortal. He was just curious how Guan, currently at the nascent soul realm, had managed to attract so many beings of the immortal path to gather here. From a distance, Zhang Xianwang saw Guan and immediately walked towards him. Guan stood downstairs, pretending not to see him, walked towards the medicine garden in front, and then stopped in front of a wooden railing to check the medicinal herbs in the garden. As Zhang Xianwang approached, Guan turned his head, his face showing a surprised expression. "Taoist Zhang, what brings you here?" Faced with Guan's question, Zhang Xianwang smiled and said, "I've come to take you to the Immortal Dynasty." Upon hearing this, Guan hesitated and said, "After much deliberation, I don't really want to go to the Immortal Dynasty, Taoist Zhang, thank you for your kindness." Zhang Xianwang frowned and said, "After experiencing the previous blessing of the Immortal Dynasty, do you still not believe the power of the Immortal Dynasty is real?" "I do believe, But I can't part with everything I have now, Guan said helplessly. Zhang Xianwang stared at him and said, if you go to the Immortal Dynasty, you can establish everything you currently have. You should understand that the most important thing in cultivation is your own future prospects. Guan took a deep breath and said, everyone has their own aspirations. My pursuit is not just about future prospects. Zhang Xianwang's brows furrowed tighter. Just as he was about to say more, Ji Xiaoyu suddenly came over. Going to the Immortal Dynasty might not necessarily lead to a better future, Ji Xiaoyu said to Zhang Xianwang, her tone indifferent, her words blunt, clearly showing no fondness for Zhang Xianwang. Zhang Xianwang saw the Dao patterns on Ji Xiaoyu's forehead and looked perplexed. His eyes shifted back and forth between Guan and Ji Xiaoyu's foreheads. Ji Xiaoyu came to stand beside Guan, turned to face Zhang Xianwang. What do you mean by that? Zhang Xianwang asked, curious about her identity, but her previous words had displeased him. Ji Xiaoyu replied, the opponent of the Immortal Dynasty is the Holy Court. By pulling him to the Immortal Dynasty, you're not leading him to a better future but to a path of swords and fires. You probably can't be sure that the Immortal Dynasty will definitely defeat the Holy Court. Zhang Xianwang's face turned ugly, and he said in a deep voice, I naturally believe that the Immortal Dynasty will have the last laugh. I'm not trying to harm him. Ji Xiaoyu continued, you may have good intentions, but at this critical juncture, joining the Immortal Dynasty is really not a good thing. At the very least, we should wait until this conflict is over, right? Guan felt the divine sense of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor locking onto Zhang Xianwang. If Zhang Xianwang made any wrong moves, he might be annihilated in an instant. He quickly spoke up, Taoist Zhang, thank you for your kindness. She is also considering my well-being. I apologize on her behalf. Her words are indeed somewhat harsh. As he spoke, Guan raised his hand in respect towards Zhang Xianwang, causing Ji Xiaoyu to pout. Zhang Xianwang took a deep breath and smiled. No matter, she does make sense, and I wasn't thoughtful enough. Let's leave it at that. Guan, worried that Zhang Xianwang might feel uncomfortable, then invited him for a drink, which Ji Xiaoyu did not join, merely watching Zhang Xianwang's retreating figure. Zhang Xianwang stayed in the Third Medicine Valley for an ancient hour before departing. He planned to return to the Immortal Dynasty, and it was uncertain if he would come back in the future. Although Guan had turned him down, Zhang Xianwang still hoped he could live a peaceful life and, before leaving, even gifted him a magic artifact. Guan tried to refuse, but Zhang Xianwang solemnly said, our meeting was a form of fate. The world is about to fall into great chaos. Having an extra magic artifact by your side is a good thing. I hope we can still have a drink together in the future. Upon hearing this, Guan no longer refused, merely expressing his gratitude and wishing him well in the future. After bidding farewell to Zhang Xianwang, Guan went to a hillside at the edge of the Medicine Valley and sat on the grass, beginning to enjoy the sunset. His eyes held the entire world, capturing the myriad states of all beings. Watching those battles, Guan's determination to make a breakthrough only grew stronger. After reaching a lifespan of 1 billion years, he must make a breakthrough immediately. Guan looked up, searching the heavens for an appropriate place to make his breakthrough. Late at night, Guan took action again, this time heading to the Bitter Sea Buddha sect. Despite being located in a barren land, the Bitter Sea Buddha sect cultivated numerous heavenly and earthly treasures, its legacy by no means inferior to that of Purple Pill Palace or Moonfall Divine Lake. The Bitter Sea Buddha sect had several divine immortals of wondrous dharma. Fortunately, there were no Tao Void mysterious immortals, so no one could detect Guan's movements. It is worth mentioning that Guan saw Lu Lingjun again. Lu Lingjun was meditating quietly under an old tree. Guan went to her medicine garden and helped her gather medicinal herbs without her noticing. Tonight, Guan was going to strive for a lifespan of 1 billion years. The Bitter Sea Buddha sect's mountain peak was vast, with countless medicine gardens on its slopes. Even though he only picked mature medicinal herbs, Guan had only walked 1/3 of the way and had already successfully gathered a lifespan of several 100 million years. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks because 2 notifications emerged before his eyes. Your lifespan has broken through 1 billion years for the first time, initiating the lifespan simulation function. Lifespan simulation. Consume lifespan to conduct simulations. You can simulate everything in reality as well as imagine and create. The lifespan consumed during the simulation will be determined based on the matter being simulated. A smile spread across Guan's face. Finally, a new function had appeared, and now he could conduct his breakthrough with peace of mind. Simulating everything sounded very powerful. Guan immediately had numerous ideas, such as simulating tribulation crossing, combat, and acting. However, whether the simulations would be identical to reality remained to be observed. If they were, that would be quite interesting. Guan continued walking forward. Since he was already here, he would finish gathering before. Chapter 360. Promoted to Mixed Yuan Refining Virtual Body. Eternal Infinity. In the early morning, Guan stepped out from the loft in Mystic Valley and, after descending the stairs, he joined the disciples in practice drills. Lu Jiujia, exceptionally joining the drill this time, chatted with his fellow disciples while they practiced. Senior brother, when do you think I can unlock the cultivation technique? Lu Jiujia suddenly asked, his tone filled with anticipation. He was currently cultivating the primordial reincarnation skill, and he felt that the primordial reincarnation skill was more profound than the Taoist expansion skill, which made him even more hopeful about his future. Guan glanced at his lifespan, saying, "Wait a few more decades, don't rush it." Lu Jiujia nodded. He trusted Guan completely, especially since Guan was already a nascent soul realm cultivator. In his eyes, although Guan possessed a very mediocre spirit root qualification, the fact that Guan had reached the nascent soul realm by the age of 400 showed that he had extraordinary comprehension. He guessed that behind the primordial reincarnation skill lay unimaginable great karmic connections, and listening to Guan was his only chance for enlightenment in this lifetime. They talked until the practice drills ended, and then Guan left. He returned to the Third Medicine Valley and, as usual, he spoke a few words with the disciples he met along the way. Today he was in an even better mood. Having reached a lifespan of 10 billion years, it was time for a breakthrough. He projected his divine sense into the cosmos. Although he had already chosen a location, he feared that living beings might intrude nearby, so he needed to observe it again. Suddenly, he came up with a bold idea. Should he attempt to break through in the silent destruction domain? The silent destruction domain was even more vast, and it also contained abundant spiritual energy. Judging by the commotion caused by his last breakthrough to the divine thought true immortal realm, this time it could possibly alarm the great heavenly spirit land. Guan did not want the Holy Court or the Immortal Dynasty to discover the birth of a new 9th level of Immortal Path. The 9th level of the Immortal Path, known as the Free Immortal. Thinking of how powerful Long Zhan and Lu Han were when they reached this level, Guan felt an intense surge of excitement. After making a round in the Third Medicine Valley, Guan returned to his loft. He then projected his divine sense into the silent destruction domain. The cosmic space within the silent destruction domain was even darker, stars unseen, permeated with a murky Taoist aura, giving one a sense of oppression. In the silent destruction domain, many enormous fierce beasts roamed, some even as large as the Taizong continent. After a long while, Guan found the location for his breakthrough and decided to make his breakthrough tonight. Guan withdrew his divine sense and suddenly thought of the lifespan simulation. Should he simulate crossing the tribulation? Immediately, he activated the lifespan simulation, thinking of the tribulation crossing. Simulating the evolution of your current realm to cross the tribulation will consume 1 million years of lifespan continue. 1 million years? What a scam! How could Guan dare to continue when there was a high probability of failing the tribulation crossing? After all, he could only rely on his physique to survive the simulated tribulation. Guan turned his head, his gaze falling on the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor was at the 8th level of divine thought true immortal cultivation. Should he try to battle him to see whose actual combat strength was superior? Guan immediately started simulating the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Locking onto the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, beginning deduction simulation value. Simulating a battle with the current Tau Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor will consume 1,000 years of lifespan. Continue. Only 1,000 years? Guwen was pleasantly surprised, then instantly realized the trap. If he won, all was well, but if he lost, he would definitely dwell on it, and 10 times that would be 10,000 years of lifespan. A total consumer trap. Oh well, let's try it just once. Guwen chose to continue, then closed his eyes, his thoughts entering the simulation space. The environment was still the supreme sect, enormously vast. Other than him and the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, no one else was visible. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor rose from behind a distant peak, looking down from high above at the standing area in the Third Medicine Valley. Watching the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, Guwen suddenly had a nostalgic feeling of playing one-on-one battle games from a past life, finding it quite amusing. Start the battle. Boom. In an instant, the entire Supreme Sect turned to flying ash. From high above, the vast Taizong continent also shattered, with nearby oceans stirring up terrifying waves. After the duration of 30 minutes, Guwen opened his eyes, his expression peculiar. Why is he so weak? Guwen felt helpless. If it wasn't for the fact that had spent 1,000 years of lifespan, he could have easily killed the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Thus, during the simulated battle, he let the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor attack most of the time, who had great difficulty breaking through the defenses of the Taoist Gang Primal Energy and the Primordial Ultimate Body. Guwen built confidence in himself. Indeed, he was very strong within his own realm, not to be misled by his failure in crossing the tribulation. High-level cultivators all have significant backgrounds, and crossing the tribulation certainly isn't reliant on one's own power alone. Moreover, the heavenly tribulations Guwen faced were stronger than those of his peers, evident just from the name of the tribulations. Guwen calmed his feelings, closed his eyes, and dozed off in his chair, waiting for nightfall. In the evening, Guwen left the Third Medicine Valley, his departure done openly, and also through the teleportation array, leaving the valley's disciples without doubt since he often visited other medicine valleys. After arriving at Mystic Valley, Guwen stayed for a while before leaving. He walked through the forest for an hour before vanishing into thin air. He performed the ultimate Taoist invisibility, turning himself into nothingness, and left the cosmos at full speed. Upon entering the silent destruction domain, he flew towards the location he had previously chosen. Soon, he landed on a meteor with other various-sized meteorites in the distance. The meteor he was on was situated at the edge of the meteor cluster, quite inconspicuous. The moment he landed, Guwen activated the lifespan barrier. Then he finally breathed a sigh of relief and comfortably sat in meditation. He did not start upgrading immediately, but instead looked into the distance, sensing the surrounding rule forces. He found that the rule forces here were very similar to those around the divine origin Great Heaven and Earth and the primordial Great Heaven and Earth. Could all great heavens and earths be encircled by the silent destruction domain? Or was the universe initially a silent destruction domain scene, with the great heavens and earth being born later? Guwen delved into deep thought, and after a while, he finally pulled up his attribute panel. Name, Guwen, lifespan. For 19/1/030/812/376, Physique, Primordial Ultimate Body, Cultivation, 9th layer of Divine Thought True Immortal Realm, 10 billion years of lifespan. The more he looked, the more exciting it was. First, let's upgrade the physique. Previously, he had used 20 million years of lifespan to upgrade the Primordial Karmic Body to the Primordial Chaos Body and then upgraded to the Primordial Ultimate Body. This time, upgrading the Primordial Ultimate Body would require at least another 20 million years of lifespan, right? Forget it, let's go bold. Throw in 50 million years of lifespan. Physique not only affects qualification but also impacts actual combat abilities. The stronger the strength, the higher the success rate of crossing the tribulation. Guwen immediately infused 50 million years of lifespan into the Primordial Ultimate Body. His lifespan abruptly dropped by a digit, falling to over 980 million years. A whirl of prompts crazily popped before Gu-en's eyes. For the first 30 million years, the primordial ultimate body did not undergo transformation but continued to strengthen. Until 35 million years, the primordial ultimate body transformed into the chaos-refined illusory body. Then, the chaos-refined illusory body continued to sense the Tao rules, constantly enhancing its perception power of the Tao rules. Ultimately, the chaos-refined illusory body could not advance further, but Gu-en was already satisfied. Boom! The surrounding spiritual energy frenziedly surged towards Gu-en. The spiritual energy within the silent destruction domain was of a higher grade than the nature's spiritual energy, mixed with an essence of Tao rules, and was known as Tao spiritual energy. Absorbing Tao spiritual energy could not only enhance cultivation but also amplify the perception power of Tao. Of course, if the cultivation realm was insufficient, absorbing Tao spiritual energy would only damage the physique and harm the soul. It seemed, thus, that the mysterious light covering the great heavenly spirit land might be a protective measure. Reaching the level of heaven and earth flying immortal would ensure safe absorption of Tao spiritual energy. Gu-en closed his eyes, fully immersing himself in enlightenment, feeling the creation of the chaos-refined illusory body. After transforming the primordial ultimate body into the chaos-refined illusory body, its great divine power, the ultimate Tao chaos pan, although not qualitatively changed, was fully unleashed, reaching a pinnacle state. The ultimate Tao chaos pan was a type of great divine power. Gu-en had used it before in simulated battles, able to effortlessly crush the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. If deployed at full power, it could even engulf the entire great heavenly spirit land. If Gu-en's cultivation was more robust, he could unleash even more terrifying might. As Tao spiritual energy furiously entered Gu-en's body, the cosmic space around him stirred up Tao winds, whimsical and wanton, shaking the distant meteor cluster. Just as this commotion started, Gu-en sensed many powerful divine senses and divine thoughts sweeping over. The weakest was from the realm of divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Sure enough, the silent destruction domain harbored numerous fearsome beings. As time passed, more and more divine thoughts appeared, signifying that he had alarmed the divine thought true immortals. Fortunately, those beings only used divine thoughts for observation and did not personally patrol. An hour later, Gu-en successfully cultivated the chaos-refined illusory body. He opened his eyes to see that the lifespan barrier had consumed 5 million years of lifespan. Such a huge consumption. Gu-en again pulled up his attribute panel, looking at his main cultivation technique, the myriad creation limitless skill. Upgrading from the primordial chaos supreme holy skill to the myriad creation limitless skill had earlier cost 20 million years of lifespan. Gu-en now planned to throw in another 50 million years of lifespan. Cultivation techniques and physiques were the most crucial. Other divine skills and ultimate skills were just embellishments. Currently, he had too many Taoist sorceries. It wasn't feasible to upgrade them all. 50 million years of lifespan, throw. One digital prompt after another jumped before his eyes, and he carefully observed. Eventually, the myriad creation limitless skill was upgraded to the eternal infinite skill. An overwhelming legacy memory surged into Gu-en's mind. The function of the eternal infinite skill allowed Gu-en's mana to exist indefinitely unless erased by a stronger force. Besides this characteristic, the strength of Gu-en's mana also increased severally. Deploying the same amount of mana, his destructive power was now several times stronger than before. The divine skill awakening from the myriad creation limitless skill, the unlimited avatars, was also enhanced. His avatars could now exist indefinitely as well, but the avatars could not have separate spiritual wisdom. The existences of the unlimited avatars meant that Gu-en had additional eyes and bodies. The avatars were only made from mana, hence not as strong as the original. Who knew who could force Gu-en to deploy the unlimited avatars? He possessed many divine skills, but he rarely used any. Of course, he hoped not to encounter a situation where he had to use all his skills to survive a crisis. The Tao spiritual energy erupted again, and this time, it finally alarmed a powerful being to appear. Guwen lifted his eyes to see a massive figure emerging from the darkness, just an outline, resembling some demon creature. This was also the largest being Guwen had ever seen in his life, larger than the great heaven and earth. Merely looking at its form was enough to feel the oppressive. Chapter 361. Breakthrough to the Free Immortal Realm 9 Layers. Guwen gazed upon that mysterious and colossal entity, feeling a deep sense of wariness in his heart. He could sense that this being was immensely powerful, far surpassing the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, likely having reached the 9th level of the immortal path. Thanks to the protection of the life-span barrier, the other side did not detect Guwen's presence and quickly left the area. The Tao spiritual energy within the universe was in turmoil, expanding its influence increasingly vast. It did not spread out in the manner of a vortex but expanded irregularly, making it impossible for passing beings to trace its origin, which was quite bizarre. While Guwen was wary of them, those hidden beings were also wary of this region. The universe space within the silent destruction domain was filled with a tense atmosphere. As inherited memories continued to delve deeper, Guwen closed his eyes, immersed in them, perceiving the mysteries of the eternal infinite skill. Time moved swiftly. Another ancient hour passed, and Guwen had completely mastered the intricacies of the eternal infinite skill. Guwen couldn't help but marvel at the power of evolutionary cultivation. Even though he possessed the memories of Long Zhan and Lu Han, mastering their cultivation techniques and divine skills still required cultivation because simply remembering was not enough. One needed to transform both body and soul. Evolutionary cultivation could accomplish this, and even compress the time to about an ancient hour, which, for his level, was almost the same as direct mastery. Inheriting cultivation techniques cost another 4 million years of lifespan. Guwen looked at his remaining lifespan of 9 billion and over 20 million years, feeling quite composed. An idea suddenly struck him. He needn't only enhance his own divine skills and ultimate techniques to a higher realm, he could also elevate Xiao Shengshen's, Long Zhan's and Lu Han's proudest divine skills to the returning to the truth realm, potentially increasing all aspects of his strength and possibly consuming less lifespan. Having thought this, Guwen began to act. He brought up his attribute panel and started investing lifespan. In the end, he elevated 7 divine bodies, fighting will, heavenly dragon reincarnation dharma aspect, and destruction Dao seal to the returning to the truth realm, consuming a total of 90 million years of lifespan. These 4 transformations each had their prowess, involving different forces of rules. While 7 divine bodies was slightly weaker, Xiao Shengshen's fighting will was surprisingly on par with Long Zhan's heavenly dragon reincarnation dharma aspect and Lu Han's destruction Dao seal, which came as a surprise to Guwen. In the attribute panel, fighting will was not categorized as a divine skill, spell, or ultimate technique but created its separate entry known as Taoist intent. Xiao Xingtian lived only 143 years but could fathom such transformations. His talent was certainly terrifying. Unfortunately, he had encountered the Black Profound Emperor. Perhaps this was why the Black Profound Emperor sought him out. Of course, the fact that Xiao Xingtian had the ability to seize lifespan from a young age did not prove his talent was stronger than that of Long Zhan or Lu Han. Another 8 million years of lifespan was consumed by the lifespan barrier, so Guwen turned his focus onto his cultivation level. Cultivation was the paramount concern. Let's try with 100 million years of lifespan to test the waters. Guwen remembered that when he was assaulting the divine thought true immortal realm, it required 300,000 years for each tribulation crossing, but he wondered how much it would need this time. You performed chi absorption cultivation for 400,000 years, forcibly assaulting the free immortal realm with the great accomplishment of the eternal infinite skill, started the tribulation, but failed to withstand the heavenly Tao punishing immortal 9 severe array, tribulation failed. You performed chi absorption cultivation for 800,000 years, forcibly assaulting the free immortal realm with the great accomplishment of the eternal infinite skill, started the tribulation, but failed to withstand the heavenly Tao punishing immortal 9 severe array, tribulation failed. 400,000 years per tribulation crossing. Fortunately, the difficulty had only increased by 100,000 years. The enhancements to his physique and cultivation technique had worked. According to the memories of Long Zhan and Lu Han, the gap between the free immortal and divine thought true immortal was enormous. A first-level free immortal could easily crush a ninth-level divine thought true immortal. This was also why Shengtian dominated the great heavenly spirit land and intimidated the silent destruction domain. Guan guessed that, had he not been enhanced, he would need more than 800,000 years to wait for the next breakthrough after failing the tribulation. Just as Guan was pondering, multiple prompts started to flash rapidly. You performed chi absorption cultivation for 24,800,000 years, forcibly assaulting the free immortal realm with the great accomplishment of the eternal infinite skill, started the tribulation, endured the heavenly Tao punishing immortal 9 severe array, tribulation succeeded, your cultivation level advanced to the first layer of the free immortal realm. You performed chi absorption cultivation for 31 million years, your cultivation level advanced to the second layer of the free immortal realm. You performed chi absorption cultivation for 39 million years, your cultivation level advanced to the third layer of the free immortal realm. You performed chi absorption cultivation for 85 million years, your cultivation level advanced to the seventh layer of the free immortal realm. You performed chi absorption cultivation for 100 million years, your cultivation level advanced to the eighth layer of the free immortal realm. It actually succeeded. Gu N's face lit up with joy. He had been prepared to lose 100 million years without gain, but as long as the breakthrough consumed less than 300 million years of lifespan, he could accept it. Once reaching the free immortal realm, each level required millions of years of lifespan to advance. Guan didn't find this excessive, as evolutionary cultivation naturally required more lifespan than real life. Moreover, once attaining the free immortal realm, increasing cultivation was as much about understanding the rules as it was about chi absorption cultivation. Long Zhan had encountered several free immortals who had struggled to break through for tens of millions of years. Could it be that the previous reincarnation evolution had played a part? Guan did not dwell on the thought, his mood cheerful as he continued to invest lifespan, spending another 20 million years to elevate his cultivation level to the ninth layer of the free immortal realm. Tao's spiritual energy began to surge around him, stirring upheaval throughout the universe once more. This disturbance was far greater than the previous one. In the great heavenly spirit land, within the immortal dynasty, beneath the dazzling starry skies stood a majestic peak with a vast and sprawling square at the summit, dotted with stone pillars emitting golden light. The lord of the immortal dynasty, Yang Xian Emperor, was meditating on a white jade dais. He suddenly opened his eyes, looked up, and furrowed his brow. It's a disturbance from the silent destruction domain. Yang Xian Emperor murmured to himself, his eyes filled with concern. The immortal dynasty and holy court refrained from waging all-out war partly because the silent destruction domain served as a check, fearing mutual destruction would provide an opportunity for the heavenly demon. The disturbance from the silent destruction domain had already affected the cosmic spiritual energy beyond the outer heaven, and this influence continued to expand, possibly reaching the great heavenly spirit land. Even someone as powerful as Yang Xian Emperor could not determine what this signal meant. He recalled a similar disturbance near the silent destruction domain in the universe area beyond the outer heaven years ago, but it was nowhere near the scale of the current disturbance. Could these two incidents be related? He knitted his brow, lost in thought. At the same time, on the other side of the great heavenly spirit land, in the Holy Land where the Holy Court resided, several figures flew out and swiftly reached the outer light layer, looking towards the distance. It's a disturbance from the silent destruction domain. Could someone be breaking through? This disturbance is too exaggerated, isn't it? It's hard to say. It could also be the heavenly demon plotting something. We should still be careful, and not forget the person from beyond the outer heaven who stole treasures from the Holy Court. Could it be related to the immortal dynasty? They could very well be colluding with the heavenly demon. The great cultivators of the Holy Court discussed heatedly, most of them bearing serious expressions, occasionally glancing towards the direction of the immortal dynasty. As time passed, the great sects within the great heavenly spirit land also became aware of the anomaly beyond the outer heaven, and more great cultivators flew out of the great heavenly spirit land, reaching the outer light layer. Boom! Within the lifespan barrier, Gu's aura rose sharply, his entire body glowing with the brilliance of the eternal infinite skill. He had officially stepped into the free immortal realm, becoming a free immortal. Upon reaching the free immortal realm, the golden core within his body began to transform. When he had reached the carefree immortal realm previously, his golden core could accumulate the force of heaven and earth rules, forming his own path. Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma molded the immortal soul of Wondrous Dharma. Tao Void Mysterious Immortal solidified the path within the golden core, and Divine Thought True Immortal allowed his soul to temper out divine thought. The golden core and soul continuously alternated in elevation, achieving a certain balance. This time, it was his golden core's turn. His golden core was transforming into another existence, within which the Tao bloated and annihilated, condensing anew his own path. Guan knew what his golden core was about to transform into. Tao Seed. Owning the memory of Longzhan, Guan knew what realm lay beyond the 9 layers of the immortal path. The key to reaching that realm lay in the Tao Seed. The Tao Seed would condense Tao fruit, and once it bore fruit, one could reach a whole new level. The free immortal realm was the process of nurturing a Tao Seed. Once the golden core completely evolved into a Tao Seed, Guan's cultivation continued to rise, and his Tao Seed grew rapidly. When he reached the 9th layer of the free immortal realm, his Tao Seed would be in its most perfect state. The birth of the Tao Seed brought many benefits, enhancing his mana, physique, and soul. If the Tao Seed was indestructible, the person would not die. Even if his flesh and soul were annihilated, the Tao Seed could regenerate flesh and soul. This was because the soul's origin had already merged into the Tao Seed. The Tao Seed was more flexible than the flesh and soul and could merge with the laws of the Great Tao without being repelled. In other words, the Tao Seed was like a nascent Tao, making it easier to exist within the universe. This is the true meaning of being free. Upon reaching this realm, Guan could better sense the subtle intentions of the universe. An entirely different force from the rules of the Great Tao was restraining everything. Enveloped in the transformations of the free immortal realm, Guan was utterly captivated. As he closed his eyes, another pair of eyes appeared in the distant darkness, spying on the void, and soon vanished. Shadowy figures swept past meteor clusters, like illusions, fleeting in an instant. The moon set, and the sun rose. Sunlight swept across the Taizong continent, dispersing the darkness. A new day dawned, and the disciples of the Third Medicine Valley began their usual training, a magnificent sight. Wu Ju came early in the morning to visit Guan but did not see him. He did not leave but stood at a distance watching the Medicine Valley disciples train. After the disciples had finished their training, an Xian approached Wu Ju, asking if he had come looking for Guan. Wu Ju nodded, and an Xian informed him that their master had gone out the day before and would likely return today. Wu Ju then decided to wait. He walked over to the Go area and watched others play. He preferred watching Chinese chess over Go. Hearing some discuss the romance of the 3 kingdoms, he couldn't help but join the conversation. The argument was whether Liu Bei was truly virtuous, engaging in an endless debate with a great cultivator from the sect, red-faced with anger. Just then, the transmission array platform lit up and Guan walked out. Chapter 362. The 419-year-old free immortal of the 9 layers realm returning to Third Medicine Valley, Guan's face blossomed into a smile. In just one night, he had transformed from the 9th layer of the Divine Thought True Immortal Realm to the 9th layer of the Free Immortal Realm, a groundbreaking change of strength. Had it not already been daylight, he would have wanted to continue breaking through. The breakthrough in cultivation level consumed nearly 50 million years of his lifespan barrier, leaving Guan with over 67 million years of life remaining. He felt there was still hope for a successful breakthrough. After reaching the free immortal realm, his perception of the great heavenly spirit land became clearer. He could confirm that both the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court were harboring free immortals. Once the free immortals go to war, it could very well involve the entire world. If he could transcend the free immortal realm, Gu-en would feel even more at ease. Gu-en stepped down from the transmission array platform and looked up. In the vast cosmos above, he saw a gray river. Not being within the cosmos, he couldn't reach it by flying upwards. He had to traverse it through the Tao rules. The River of Destiny. The place where Lu Han perished. Gu-en just watched from a distance, with no immediate intention to step into the River of Destiny. His gaze then shifted to Wu Ju, who rarely took the trouble to visit him, so he naturally went to greet him. Yu Yingying was holding a rabbit as she saw the figure of Gu-en. She subconsciously looked over and was taken aback for a moment, rubbing her eyes with one hand. Gu-en was dressed the same as the day before, with no change in his makeup or hairstyle, yet Yu Yingying felt a significant change in him. This change was indescribable for her. Looking at Gu-en made her want to approach him, but after a longer gaze, she felt an urge to submit. It was a complex emotion, difficult for her to describe. Not only her, but other disciples also couldn't help but take a second look at Gu-en after seeing him. Gu-en arrived behind Wu Ju just in time to hear him listing the benevolent deeds of Liu Bei. Wu Ju seemed to sense something and turned his head. Seeing Gu-en, the anger on his face instantly vanished. "You're finally back. Come on, let's go have a drink." Wu Ju immediately pulled Gu-en's arm and walked to the side. Gu-en naturally wouldn't refuse. He called out for an Xen to prepare wine and dishes. The two settled in Gu-en's loft, sitting opposite each other. "Gu-en, I've reached the unification realm," Wu Ju excitedly declared, his face brimming with pride. Gu-en was amused. "You're in the unification realm? I couldn't even sense it until I approached you from behind." He had suppressed his aura to nascent soul realm levels without completely hiding it. This showed that Wu Ju really got carried away easily. Gu-en wondered if this would cause him trouble in the future. "Really? That's two," Gu-en feigned surprise, his eyes widening. Wu Ju became even more smug at his expression, boastfully asking, "A unification realm at 421 years old. Do you understand what kind of strength that represents?" Gu-en opened his mouth, then found himself at a loss for words. He knew very well what strength a unification realm cultivator at 421 years old represented. Isn't it just the unification realm? What he wanted to ask Wu Ju was whether he knew what the 9th layer of the free immortal realm at 419 years old constituted in terms of power. An Xan, who had come upstairs to deliver the wine and dishes, found Wu Ju's statement amusing. "Showing off in front of my master?" She placed the wine and dishes on the table, then left. Wu Ju had been speaking loudly on purpose and wondered why an Xen didn't react. Gu-en noticed this and chided an Xen mentally for not maintaining the composure of an actor, too quick to relax. "Never thought you'd make it this far. Although I've always felt you were extraordinary, it turns out I still underestimated you," Gu-en said with feeling, immediately drawing Wu Ju's attention back. Wu Ju laughed and said, "If it weren't for your constant encouragement in the past, I couldn't have reached this point today. You too can comprehend the path. It's not impossible for you to reach the unification realm in the future." Gu-en shook his head. "That's impossible. How could it be? You have to believe in yourself." "Yeah, it's because of belief there's no chance." Gu-en then asked, "You should be able to compare with an Hao and my brother Li now, right?" Upon hearing this, Wu Ju's eyes shone. "I'm not sure, but I've always aimed to match them. Sadly, I don't know how strong they really are. I'll challenge them once I surpass their realms." "Goodness! You like to fight across realms as well?" Gu-en was happy, but he was quite satisfied with Wu Ju's mentality. One can't be arrogant, and one mustn't act rashly. Even the strongest can be vanquished. The two began to talk about the future, mainly about Wu Ju's future. Gu-en was extremely supportive, hitting all the right notes for Wu Ju. Third Medicine Valley was harmonious and lively, and the Supreme Sect was just the same. Everyone was unaware of the changes outside the heavens. At the moment, the layer of light outside the heavens gathered many great cultivators, with the least of their realms being heaven and earth flying immortal, all gazing at the silent destruction domain. Fu Shinxiu and Bai Zia from Mortal World Peak had also arrived, accompanied by more than a dozen heaven and earth flying immortals. He certainly couldn't delve deep into the silent destruction domain. What if an existence like the Black Profound Emperor was waiting? Autumn winds whistled through the forest where Guan sat on a rock, gazing at the sky through the gaps in the leaves. The Blood Prison Great Saint lay beside him, while an Exen practiced the stepping path of age's step. Her movements were smoother than before, each step full of grace, catching even the Blood Prison Great Saint's eyes. The Blood Prison Great Saint also wanted to learn, but simply watching an Exen couldn't unravel the technique for him. He guessed that to learn such divine skills, personal guidance from the master was necessary. He didn't ask, understanding his current form was unsuited for divine skill cultivation. If he behaved well, he would eventually learn once 1,000 years passed. Gu and his eyes turned to the sea. His covert action had still caused disturbances, with the factions from which he had stolen unable to find the true culprit, resorting to seeking help from the Holy Court. The Holy Court gathered the information and dispatched many of its cultivators for investigation. Guan heard some saying the affair might be related to the phenomena outside the heavens, even discussing the heavenly demons' conspiracies. It made him laugh and cry. The initial guesses were accurate, but later they veered off course. Nevertheless, he wasn't worried about being exposed. After all, he would no longer steal after this breakthrough, resuming his usual state to watch the world's changes with a smile. The only downside to a peaceful world is that with stable order, it's hard for those at the bottom to climb, and breaking the rules would easily invite trouble. The resources of the great heavenly spirit land had been divided among various factions. Any land nurturing heaven and earth treasures was always near a sect, with very few ownerless treasures left. Either they were guarded by a sect, or a great demon was watching them. Of course, compared to the turmoil of unrest, Guan preferred peace. Peace may have less opportunity, but it's not as dangerous. If not for the Holy Court establishing order, the Seven-Star Spirit Realm would have trampled the Supreme Sect before Guan could rise. It was the world's rules that kept the Seven-Star Spirit Realm from acting recklessly, their vile acts only able to be performed in the shadows. Gu's divine thought suddenly fell on Zhu Shi of Moonfall Divine Lake. In the vast world, only a handful of people he had physically seen could reach the peak longevity of 9,999 years before the Nirvana realm. And how the evil emperor, Yang Jian, the Blood Prison Great Saint, Ji Xiaoyu, and Zhu Shi. Among them, the evil emperor, the sect hierarch of the ephemera sect, was trapped under the immortal king crown and crushed by Guan. There surely were other individuals with the maximum longevity of 9,999 years in this world. They just hadn't appeared before Guan yet. Perception could not be used for lifespan detection. Guan saw Zhu Shi cultivating, her cultivation level the same as the last time he saw her, with no hint of change. What heights will the Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body reach here? Guan was filled with curiosity. Within the great heavenly spirit land, ancient treasure bodies were rare. Above them were Taoist bodies, and higher still were holy bodies. The Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body was comparable to the primordial karmic body, exceeding even the holy bodies. In terms of physique alone, Zhu Shi was much stronger than in Hao and Yang Jian. Of course, physique was just one aspect of talent. Like in Hao, his intellect was equally remarkable. 9,999 years is the limit of longevity for the human race beneath the Nirvana realm, but it doesn't necessarily mean the limit of their gifts. Chapter 363, Peeking into the Future. Master, I can't train anymore. An Exen approached Guan, speaking feebly. Guan came back to his senses, nodded slightly, then stood up and took an Exen and Blood Prison Great Saint away. Master, do you think the Immortal Dynasty will fight with the Holy Court? Everyone outside is saying that great changes are coming, an Exen asked curiously as she walked beside Guan. The ancestor of void illusions blessed all beings. causing the status of the immortal dynasty in the hearts of all beings to soar. Now, in the eyes of most beings, the immortal dynasty was even stronger than the Holy Court. Once the immortal dynasty defeated the Holy Court, a new era would begin. Perhaps, Guan answered, but it has nothing to do with us. The Taitsong continent can't participate in such a struggle yet. Looking at the lights in outer heaven, Guan suddenly felt that he delayed the conflict between the immortal dynasty and the Holy Court. Now the entire great heavenly spirit land feared the silent destruction domain and dared not rashly go to war. Guan suddenly felt very great, thinking that his breakthrough could help maintain peace in the world. Perhaps such peace could only last a few decades, 100 or 200 years, but mortal spirits could only live that long. And Xian continued to inquire. She was very curious about who was stronger between the immortal dynasty and the Holy Court. Guan didn't make a judgment. His answers were equivocal, but this didn't hinder her imagination. Seeing that her master didn't want to speak more, she started chatting with the blood prison great saint. In the following days, Guan's divine thought explored the silent destruction domain daily, looking for the right time to break through. The commotion he had previously caused was too great, making powerful beings linger near the silent destruction domain. Not only was the great heavenly spirit land tense, but the forces within the silent destruction domain were also nervous, thinking that the great heavenly spirit land was going to invade them. As autumn passed and winter came, the year's flying snow arrived on schedule. In the early winter, Guan took an Xen to Mortal World Peak, and an Xen walked to one side to cultivate on her own. It wasn't long before Zhu Xinglan came to visit Guan. Master, there have been thieves on Mortal World Peak lately, Zhu Xinglan said with a solemn expression. Guan raised an eyebrow, asking in surprise, what kind of thieves? Were there any casualties? No, but many garden areas had medicinal herbs harvested, including our Mortal World Peak's medicine garden. Fortunately, only harvesting was done, and there was no damage. Even the Supreme Elder of the main peak couldn't find the real culprit. Also, I heard that there were strange phenomena beyond outer heaven recently. Do you think it could be the work of the heavenly demon? Zhu Xinglan said anxiously. The higher you stand, the more dangers you see. With external threats from the heavenly demons and internal tensions between the immortal dynasty and the Holy Court at knife point, how could he not think more? Moreover, a heavenly demon was hidden beneath Mortal World Peak. Guan frowned and pretended to calculate with his fingers. Zhu Xinglan seemed to think of something, adding, moreover, other sects have encountered similar situations to Mortal World Peak, with medicinal herbs mysteriously harvested without anyone knowing who the perpetrator is. Guan asked, how many times has this happened on Mortal World Peak? Just once. Then let's wait and see, it might just be a false alarm. Perhaps. Zhu Xinglan felt it made sense and then began to speak about the situation of Dingtian Peak. Not long after, Zhu Xinglan left, and Guan began to enjoy some leisure time, not in a rush to harvest herbs since the recent situation was tense. A lifespan of 10 billion years should be enough for him to break through. After reading for a while, Guan's gaze turned towards outer heaven. He saw a great battle unfolding within the silent destruction domain. The combatants were divine thought true immortals, and they were not beings from the great heavenly spirit land. Beings born in the silent destruction domain differed distinctly from those of the great heavenly spirit land in terms of aura, so the heavenly demon was easy to identify. Guan watched the battle, curious to see how the divine thought true immortals of the silent destruction domain compared to the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor in strength. The true immortals fighting resembled the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor in the simulation, each strike deadly, showing no mercy, clearly bearing deep hatred. After watching for a while, Guan felt they were not as strong as the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. It was unlikely that even both together could defeat the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. No wonder the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor could travel from the Yin-Yang domain and even penetrate the Holy Court and leave triumphantly. Guan speculated that the Reincarnation Path Emperor and the Holy Court had some causal connection. Otherwise, the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor wouldn't have been able to steal the Reincarnation Path Emperor's soul jade from within the Holy Court. He waited until he took an XN back to the Supreme Sect, and those two divine thought true immortals were still undecided in their battle. As night fell, Guan read in the attic, a stove nearby with a pot of wine brewing on it. This atmosphere in the cold winter felt very warm. The door was pushed open, and Ji Xiaoyu walked straight in. "Why didn't you knock?" Guan didn't look up as he responded, already having an idea in his mind. That was to capture Shen Tianyi, lock him in a small black room, and make him write books every day. What great potential for writing, cultivating immortality was wasting him. Ji Xiaoyu closed the door and then sat down at the table, starting by saying, "Your temperament has changed somewhat recently. Are you cultivating some miracle skill?" Guan glanced at her and said, "Because I love to read, books nourish the spirit." Ji Xiaoyu smiled and looked at Green Hero Travelogue, then said, "Such books can nourish the spirit? It's a good thing your cultivation level isn't high, otherwise, you'd surely become a disaster for the world." Guan put away Green Hero Travelogue, coughed, and asked, "Is there something you need?" Since Ji Xiaoyu absorbed the soul jade brought by the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, her cultivation level had been rising faster and faster, and now she was at the 9th layer of the Void Crossing realm. Be aware she was only 263 years old. "I'm planning to leave for a few years and will leave tomorrow morning," Ji Xiaoyu said as she looked around the room. "What are you going to do?" "Breakthrough." "Another breakthrough? What realm are you at now?" Seeing Gu An's shocked expression, the corners of Ji Xiaoyu's mouth lifted, and with a soft voice, she said, "Void Crossing Realm, 9th layer, ready to break through to the Unification Realm." Gu An's eyes widened, muttering, "To catch up to Wu Ju. Who told you not to cultivate diligently? Our gap will only widen further," Ji Xiaoyu said with a faint grievance. She had thought Gu An's change in temperament was due to cultivation, only to be disappointed. Hearing this, Guan argued, "I am still nascent soul realm, a nascent soul realm at 400 years old. How can I not be considered a genius? I was just born in the wrong era. If I had lived a few hundred years earlier, the Supreme Sect would have made much of me." Ji Xiaoyu shook her head, laughing, and said, "Have you ever thought that the reason you have the achievements you do today is because the Supreme Sect has grown stronger? When comparing talent, you should compare with those around you, not just yourself." Guan grinned awkwardly, unable to reply. Seeing his expression, Ji Xiaoyu's heart softened, and she didn't pursue the topic further but instead asked, "Is there anything you need? I can bring it back for you." "That won't be necessary. I don't need anything." The two began to chat leisurely, discussing whatever came to mind, neither feeling awkward. This feeling was like that of an old married couple. What am I thinking about? Guan cursed in his mind, then started to probe Ji Xiaoyu's karma. After reaching the 9th layer of the free immortal realm, his karmic and life path cultivation became even stronger. He could see the development of Ji Xiaoyu's life path for the next 1,000 years. Although Ji Xiaoyu's fate had many variables, there were also overlaps with others. That was, she would be involved in the Great War between the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court. In the future, the whole world, including the Supreme Sect, would get swept up in this conflict. The Supreme Sect supported the Holy Court because Sword Venerable Fudao had joined the Holy Court, and the Holy Court continuously tried to tie the Supreme Sect to their chariot. Guan could see the future through the beings of the Supreme Sect, and he had no thoughts of preventing or changing it. Rather, he felt a sense of detachment. At first glance, all beings lived according to a heavenly scripted drama, but he could foresee everything and had the power to change it, a feeling wonderfully sublime. After chatting for an hour, Ji Xiaoyu finally left. Guan then stood up and went to the stove, lifting the wine jug to pour himself some wine. Ji Xiaoyu was preparing for a breakthrough, and he was also ready for his own. It was truly a double celebration. Tonight deserved celebration. The next morning, Ji Xiaoyu left Third Medicine Valley. After joining his disciples for training, Guan also left on his own. He stayed at Mystic Valley for a while before departing. Using his ultimate art to turn his body into illusion, he concealed his form, and combining the cosmic path divine skill to hide his own aura and karma, he directly crossed through the light layer of outer heaven, unnoticed by any great cultivator, and flew towards the silent destruction domain. This time, Guin headed in another direction. Soon, he entered the silent destruction domain and landed in a nebula. He could sense beings roving in all directions, those two divine thought true immortals still locked in battle. He couldn't manage that much anymore. He had to break through as soon as possible. Settling into a meditative pose, he activated his lifespan barrier, then accessed his attribute panel. Name, Guin, lifespan, for 19/1004/613-224, physique, mixed origin refining void body, cultivation level, free immortal realm, 9th layer, a lifespan of 10 billion years should be enough for a successful breakthrough, right? Guin suddenly felt worried. He had decided this time to not enhance his divine skills or cultivation techniques any further but to directly attempt the breakthrough. After all, there's no limit to enhancement in various aspects, and he was more concerned with ascending realms. There was no need to wait any longer. Never mind. A direct breakthrough. If 10 billion years of lifespan isn't enough, then he'll just have to wait more. Guin's expression hardened, his gaze lingering on his cultivation level section. Invest 1 billion years of lifespan. You undergo energy absorption cultivation for 2 million years, using the eternal infinite skill's great accomplishment to forcefully attack the Tao fruit realm, begin tribulation crossing. You couldn't endure the heavenly Tao Tai divine element grand tribulation, the tribulation crossing failed. You undergo energy absorption cultivation for 4 million years, using the eternal infinite skill's great accomplishment to forcefully attack the Tao fruit realm, begin tribulation crossing. Couldn't endure the heavenly Tao Tai divine element grand tribulation, the tribulation crossing failed. Well. 2 million years for one tribulation crossing? That's a huge gap. Guin's eyelids twitched, but thinking of Long Zhan's tremendous strength after his successful breakthrough, he felt slightly relieved. What are 2 million years? He had a 10 billion year lifespan and could afford the gamble. One prompt after another jumped out. Guin deliberately only looked at the length of the prompts. No changes at all. Until 1 billion years were exhausted, he still hadn't broken through. Guin took a deep breath and invested another billion years of lifespan. Chapter 364. Breakthrough to the perfect completion of the Taoist repository free immortal realm. The second 100 million years. Guin made his decision and stared intently at the prompts. One after another, the prompts emerged, all of them failures. Facing tribulation every 2 million years, he could only attempt it 50 times in 100 million years. The experience of failing 200 or 300 times before had made Guin increasingly tense. In the end, they were all failures. 200 million years of lifespan, 100 failures. Guin remembered the heavenly Tao Tai divine origin tribulation. Although he hadn't enhanced his cultivation technique or divine skills, he felt all aspects of himself were already sufficiently powerful. This heavenly Tao Tai divine origin tribulation really has some substance. Guin reflected emotionally, then once again committed 100 million years of lifespan. Failure. Guin saw that the lifespan barrier had barely consumed any lifespan and felt as if the barrier was silently mocking him. Another 100 million years. It should be a success now, right? Guin gritted his teeth, no longer able to maintain his composure. The prompt came out again, faster than before. Another failure. Guin had now squandered 400 million years of his lifespan, failing 200 times. He couldn't help but think of Long Zhan. He didn't know how many years of lifespan it had taken Long Zhan to succeed in his breakthrough. He had inherited Long Zhan's memories, but he couldn't see Long Zhan's life-stealing prompts, nor could he hear Long Zhan's inner monologue at that time. He could only experience Long Zhan's life through his own eyes, which was how he was certain he himself was the true incarnation. He wouldn't get lost because of it. Long Zhan had never revealed his life-stealing ability to anyone, Nor did he ever talk about his lifespan, so Guan didn't know how many years of lifespan Longzhan had. However, recalling Longzhan's memories, he realized that Longzhan did indeed feel frustrated in the early stages of charging into the Tao fruit realm. Presumably Longzhan had also failed many times. Guan took another deep breath, cast aside all distractions, and continued with the breakthrough. He still had 600 million years of lifespan left. It would be fine as long as he succeeded. After all, the lifespan is just a number, which can be slowly accumulated. Besides, he was more fortunate than Longzhan, who only unlocked the life-stealing ability in the late stages of his life, while he was just 419 years old. There were endless possibilities in life. As long as he didn't act as arrogantly as Longzhan had. Another 100 million years. Guan decided in his heart, and as soon as all prompts had settled, he immediately invested another 100 million years of lifespan. He didn't overlook his attribute panel, which still showed 400 million years of lifespan. Another failure. Guan had to stop, he needed to calm down. 2 more tries. If he still wasn't successful after 200 million years, he would have to stop this time. After all, attempting to break through would consume lifespan in the lifespan barrier. The last breakthrough consumed 50 million years of lifespan, and this time it would definitely double. Here we go again. 100 million years. Guan's eyes turned icy cold, but they soon shifted. You have practiced qi absorption cultivation for 48 million years, forcefully charged into the Tao fruit realm with the great accomplishment of eternal infinite skill, and began tribulation crossing. You have endured the heavenly Tao Tai divine origin tribulation and succeeded, stepping into the Tao fruit realm. Your cultivation level has broken through to the early stage of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. You have practiced qi absorption cultivation for 85 million years, and your cultivation level has improved to the mid-stage of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. You have practiced qi absorption cultivation for 100 million years, and your cultivation level has improved. Breakthrough success. The division of minor cultivation levels was no longer 9 layers but was now early and middle stages. It seems that the Tao fruit realm is a major realm, comparable to major stages like the mortal realm and the 9 heavens of the immortal path. Taoist storage-free immortal. This was the realm that Longzhan had reached. Just when he reached this realm, he was executed by the Annihilation God Emperor. Tao spiritual energy began to surge towards Guan, and he saw the lifespan numbers on the lifespan barrier start to jump quickly. Guan still had 300 million years of lifespan, and he continued to spend. One prompt after another kept jumping out, and this time he invested slowly, no longer splurging 100 million years at a time. The late stage of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. The completion of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. Just 2 minor realms cost Guan 120 million years of lifespan. He had 180 million years of lifespan left. The lifespan barrier shouldn't dry him out completely, would it? Guan's mood was a bit apprehensive. If really pushed to the limit, he could only cancel the lifespan barrier. He certainly couldn't just wait for death. As vast amounts of Tao spiritual energy entered his body, there was another upheaval in the silent destruction domain. Not only Tao spiritual energy but even the Tao rules of the universe were in upheaval. Almost instantly, those beings who were fighting or exploring in the area were scared into immediate retreat. This upheaval far exceeded the disturbance Guan had made during his last breakthrough. Even true immortals with divine thoughts were frightened into running away. Guan soon closed his eyes, immersing himself in the metamorphosis of his being. His Tao seed began to absorb Tao spiritual energy, even Tao rules integrated into his body, with cause and effect, destiny rules in the majority, followed by soul and reincarnation rules. Although reincarnation rules have always existed, they were not as perfected as his previous lives' mythology portrayed. The reincarnation rules absorb souls, then let them reincarnate anew. This process is elusive and unstoppable. Guan focused on his Tao seed, which continued to store Tao unique to himself. The path of a cultivator is similar to that of Tao rules, yet different. It's more like a special form of mana, Its execution is also similar to divine skills. Once the Tao seed blossoms into Tao fruit, Gu-en would be able to fight using his own Tao, entering a higher level of combat with even richer methods. The Taoist storage realm would nurture the first life-bound great divine power. Life-bound great divine powers cannot be passed on to others, only to be exercised by oneself. As Gu-en contemplated his first life-bound great divine power, he also thought about his immortal path supreme treasure, wondering if he could combine them. That would be even better. He enjoyed writing books, so decided to create a pen. The life-bound great divine power would have to be related to the pen. He quickly had an idea, and as his thoughts flowed, the rate at which Tao spiritual energy and Tao rules powers entered his body accelerated. The influence caused by this also expanded rapidly, soon alarming the great heavenly spirit land. The great cultivators guarding the outer heaven light layer were all startled, standing up one after another. Here it comes again, this time even stronger than before. What exactly is this commotion? Why are even the spiritual energy and rules of the universe in uproar? Unable to capture the source of the anomaly. Everyone be careful. This surely has to do with the heavenly demon. Trouble has piled up one after the other. Could it be the fabled epical tribulation? While the great cultivators were discussing, two figures appeared above them, unnoticed by anyone. These were two free immortals, one from the immortal dynasty, the other from the holy court. The free immortal from the immortal dynasty was known as the ancient immortal emperor. The holy court's free immortal was addressed as Saint Ancestor. The ancient immortal emperor had youthful features with white hair, wearing a white robe, his whole being gleamed with white Tao light, looking out of place amidst the cosmic stars. Is this a breakthrough or a formation being set up? The ancient immortal emperor asked with a slight furrow in his brows. The Saint Ancestor, dressed in dark Tao robes with black and white hair fluttering slightly, emitted a very strong sense of oppression. His eyes also peered into the depths of the cosmos. It doesn't seem to be either, it's more like some Tao rules are affecting the universe, Saint Ancestor said with a complex tone. Both free immortals lapsed into silence. After a long time, Saint Ancestor looked towards the ancient immortal emperor. You wouldn't interfere in the disputes of the younger generations, would you? The ancient immortal emperor turned to look at him. As long as you don't break our agreement, I naturally want either. At those words, the Saint Ancestor showed a smile and nodded. Let the younger ones fight. Comprehending Tao is what we should be doing. If the heavenly demon really attacks and the great heavenly spirit land faces the threat of destruction, that's when we'll step in. The ancient immortal emperor had no objections. He turned to glance at the great heavenly spirit land with a meaningful look in his eyes. How many lifetimes does Sheng Tian still have? The ancient immortal emperor asked. Saint Ancestor shook his head. I have no idea. In the early years, he ceased to trust me and began contemplating the heavenly Tao, setting himself on a solitary and strong path. The ancient immortal emperor fell silent, no more questions asked. His gaze returned to the silent destruction domain. Boom! Gu-en's Tao seed completely solidified into a Tao fruit, officially achieving the Taoist storage realm. At the same time, his Tao fruit manifested Tao patterns, the form of his life-bound great divine power. Gu-en named his self-created life-bound great divine power as the longevity true words, a divine power primarily based on cause and effect, fate, deciding the life, death, and destiny of beings with words. There was a profound mystery of laws following speech. Gu-en continued the charge into the midstage of the Taoist storage free immortal realm. He opened his eyes and looked toward the attribute panel, seeing he had 130 million years of lifespan left, his heart somewhat relieved. From this perspective, the lifespan barrier would not exhaust all his lifespan. Time moved swiftly. An ancient hour later, his cultivation level had reached the late stage of the Taoist storage free immortal realm. Just one more minor realm to go. The mana of the late stage of Taoist storage free immortal far exceeded the early stage, in both quantity and quality, incomparable to the early stage. An unprecedented sense of power made Gu-en extremely gratified. He even felt as if the universe couldn't confine him, that he could easily leap out of it. He restrained himself. He felt that terrifying existences were wandering outside the cosmos. Perhaps the Annihilation God Emperor, Black Profound Emperor, were waiting for him. He looked into the distance. His divine thought turned invisible, probing far away. Traversing within the silent destruction domain, his divine thought spied many powerful beings. The silent destruction domain still hosted quite a few true immortals and free immortals, though they were very scattered, equivalent to a realm as large as the great heavenly spirit land hardly housing a single free immortal. Crossing vast distances, he saw another great heaven and earth. He didn't linger, continuing onward. Over the following period, he encountered 3 other great heaven and earths, all enveloped by the silent destruction domain. As his divine thought neared its limit, he quickly retracted it and concentrated on breaking through. The nearest great heaven and earth to the great heavenly spirit land was extremely distant. It would take true immortals years just to travel there, passing through many areas of spatial distortion along the way, which cannot be crossed by mere flight. Gu and his focus returned to his body, observing his own Tao fruit. He had an intuition that once the Tao fruit bloomed, a new realm would open up. He looked forward to that day. At that moment, Guan seemed to sense something and looked up. In the deep darkness, a pair of gigantic eyes appeared, the same eyes he had seen during his previous breakthrough. Unexpectedly, they had appeared again. They were larger than the great heavenly spirit land eyeballs, showing how immense those eyes truly were. Guan fixed his gaze on these giant eyes, wishing to see through them. Chapter 365. Mysterious Reincarnation. Fate-determining Pen Guan compared his memory with the eyes before him and determined they were not the eyes of the Black Profound Emperor. As for whether they were the eyes of the Annihilation God Emperor, he couldn't decide. Long Zhan had never actually seen the true body of the Annihilation God Emperor and was pinched to death by a hand that the Annihilation God Emperor had reached out. For the time being, he could not see through the cultivation level of this pair of huge eyes, but they indeed gave people an uneasy and oppressive feeling. Relying on the lifespan barrier, Guan wasn't afraid of being detected by the other party. He had originally thought that the eyes would disappear after watching for a while, but that was not the case. He suddenly saw 2 figures flying out from the midst of those giant eyes, and they swept past above Guan at an extremely fast speed, heading towards the great heavenly spirit land. Although they passed above Guan, they were actually very distant from him. Guan turned his head to look, his eyebrows furrowing and a worried expression in his eyes. He could sense that these 2 figures were just from the free immortal realm, but free immortals could easily obliterate the lives in the great heavenly spirit land. He still needed to make a breakthrough and didn't want to act rashly. Moreover, those giant eyes were still there. If he made a move, would he expose himself? Guan saw that free immortals from both the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court had appeared and could only hope that they would be able to stop this mysterious enemy. However, the moment those 2 figures that emerged from the giant eyes reached the edge of the silent destruction domain, they suddenly disappeared. Guan keenly caught that they had entered into the reincarnation rules, and then they entered the light layer of outer heaven in a manner incomprehensible to cultivators before their presence completely vanished. During the entire process, even those 2 free immortals were unable to detect them. This reincarnation? Guan turned his head back and saw the pair of giant eyes slowly disappearing into the darkness as if they had never appeared. Forget it. First, make a breakthrough. Guan raised his right hand, using his powerful mana to condense the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure he desired. Free immortals could create Immortal Path Supreme Treasures. Naturally, it was even easier for free immortals in a higher realm. While his cultivation level rose continuously, Guan quickly shaped the form of the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, then infused his own Tao into it, forming a restriction structure that stabilized the Dharma treasure. Time continued to move on. After a little half an ancient hour had passed, Guan finally reached the perfect realm of the free immortals. At this moment, he felt a great sense of power, as if he could reach to the heavens and pierce through the earth. His right hand was still shaping the immortal path supreme treasure, divine light shining upon his face, and the golden patterns on his forehead gleamed, making his face appear even more majestic. He seemed to be beholding a piece of heaven and earth, his gaze profound. He glanced at the attribute panel and saw he still had 70 million years of lifespan. He did not rush to lift the lifespan barrier but continued to fashion the immortal path supreme treasure. With the breakthrough completed, the rate at which the lifespan barrier consumed his lifespan abruptly decreased. The turmoil in the silent destruction domain also began to slow, bringing relief to the creatures hiding all around. It wasn't just the creatures of the great heavenly spirit land who were afraid. The heavenly demons in the silent destruction domain also trembled, as there were tales of calamity everywhere, which is the creatures' worry about the unknown. Faced with unknown dangers, it was easy for them to associate these fears with the heavenly will and calamity. Waiting for the Tao spiritual energy's turbulence to subside and Tao rule's surges to cease, the silent destruction domain sank into deathly silence, extremely oppressive. Another 2 ancient hours passed. The immortal path supreme treasure in Gu'en's hand finally took shape, but to become a true immortal path supreme treasure, one last step was required, to infuse it with his soul's essence. The immortal path supreme treasure was not just a powerful Dharma treasure but also unique. The reason it could endure eternally was that the essence of the free immortal's power maintained this characteristic. Gu'en suddenly felt a very special force manifesting in the cosmos, a force similar to that in the layer of light outside of heaven. His immortal path supreme treasure seemed to want to be recognized by this force, yearning for it to be branded upon itself. Could this be the heavenly Tao rules? Gu'en was secretly alarmed. The heavenly Tao rules always seemed more threatening to him than the Tao rules, mainly because the heavenly Tao rules were too perfect, almost as if they had a will of their own. He couldn't let the immortal path supreme treasure make contact with the heavenly Tao rules. Gu'en forcibly suppressed the immortal path supreme treasure in his hand. After a good while, the immortal path supreme treasure no longer had the desire to approach the heavenly Tao rules. The divine light dissipated. A white brush with black bristles appeared in his hand, looking quite ordinary. Golden characters gradually emerged on the shaft of the brush. The fate-determining pen. Gu'en's mouth curved upward, very pleased with himself. He still had over 60 million years of lifespan. This breakthrough had been perilous, but fortunately he had succeeded. He stood up and disappeared on the spot in an instant. With a single step, he arrived at the edges of Mystic Valley. Following that, he stepped out of the woods into a world where snow fluttered all around. The snow melted rapidly wherever he went. He stopped moving, concealing the aura of his Tao fruit before continuing on his way. Snowflakes fell on him, and his figure gradually was obscured, as if returning to the mundane. 30 minutes later, Gu'en returned to the third Medicine Valley. He stepped down from the transmission array platform and then headed towards the chess-playing area. This day, Nine-Finger Divine Lord was once again trouncing the less skilled. His opponent was still Shinxinzi. Shinxinzi held the romance of the 3 kingdoms in one hand and a chess piece in the other, his eyebrows tightly furrowed, indecisive about his move. There were more than a dozen people surrounding them, including Medicine Valley disciples and great cultivators from the Supreme Sect, all of whom were discussing in low voices. Gu'en approached them, playing with the fate-determining pen in his hand. Yu Inying nudged closer, asking curiously, "Did you just buy that brush?" This brush was larger than ordinary, the size of a flute, which piqued Yu Inying's curiosity even more. "Yeah, bought it this morning from an old senior. He said it's an immortal path supreme treasure," Gu'en replied with a smile. Upon hearing this, Yu Inying rolled her eyes with disbelief, asking, "Since it's an immortal path supreme treasure, how many spirit stones did it cost you?" 10 top-grade spirit stones, pretty expensive, right? Heh. Yu Inying's gaze was like one looking at a fool, the scorn clear in her laughter. Gu'en extended the fate-determining pen towards her, saying, 100 top-grade spirit stones, I'll sell it to you, taking a little loss. Yu Inying slapped his hand away with a huff, retorting, "I'm not as foolish as you, I won't buy it. But if you gift it to me, I could consider it." Quite the character, wanting something for nothing? Guwen rolled his eyes at Yu Inying, then continued his walk towards Nine-Finger Divine Lord and the others. Yu Inying followed, eyeing Guwen closely. She had sensed changes in Gu An's temperament multiple times. She always felt that Guwen was hiding a secret. Could this guy really have taken Sword Venerable Fudao as his teacher? Guwen made his way through the crowd to stand behind Shinxinzi, with Yu Inying following close behind. Nine-Finger Divine Lord, sitting opposite, lifted his gaze towards Guwen, also noticing the pen in his hand, and smiled. "That's a decent-looking pen you have there. May I take a look?" Guwen twirled the fate-determining pen in his hand and said, 100 top-grade spirit stones, I'll sell it to you. This might actually be an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. An Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Nine-Finger Divine Lord found this amusing, having just overheard Guwen's conversation with Yu Inying and initially thought Guwen was simply teasing her. He did not expect the kid actually believed it. Pretending to be serious, he looked at the fate-determining pen and said, "Oh? It really seems like it." Gu An's expression immediately became awkward. Did he recognize it? No, he would have to pat him on the shoulder tonight and use the Great Imprisoned Soul Immortal technique to erase this memory. Chapter 366. Heavenly Demon Turbulence. Nine-Finger Divine Lord wasn't sure what Guwen was thinking. Seeing the change in Gu An's expression, he feared the young man might actually believe it, so he said, "I was just kidding. With your cultivation level, if it really were an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, you would be reduced to ashes upon contact." Guwen, upon hearing this, relaxed inwardly, but his face contorted as if he couldn't bear to accept this fact. He looked down. Shinxinzi had already fallen into a dead end and was struggling in vain. "Let me do it." Guwen patted Shinxinzi on the shoulder and said. Shinxinzi took a deep breath and then stood up. Nine-Finger Divine Lord began to pick up pieces. Picking up the black pieces, he stared at Guwen with a smile. "My chess skills have improved. You need to be careful this time." Guwen sat down, twirling the fate-determining pen in his hand, and said, "In chess, I cannot lose." Yu Inying, standing by, had a peculiar look on her face. For some reason, she felt Gu An's statement was very imposing. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord made the first move, and the chess game began. The spectators were engrossed in watching, and Shinxinzi also wanted to learn from Gu An's moves. Confident, Nine-Finger Divine Lord played quickly, not using his usual tactic of wearing down the old-timers. Half an ancient hour later, Guwen stood up. Under the admiring gaze of the onlookers, he left, followed quickly by Yu Inying. Shinxinzi looked at the chessboard, his face showing admiration. Nine-Finger Divine Lord, however, had a dark expression, staring intently at the chessboard. For some reason, he felt the gap between him and Guwen widening, and he couldn't understand why. Guwen was planning to go see Long Qing, but Yu Inying was following him. He could feel that Yu Inying sensed his change, but he wasn't panicked. Now in the great heavenly spirit land, no one could see through his cultivation level. Even if his demeanor had changed drastically, he was still in the nascent soul realm, so neither Nine-Finger Divine Lord nor Shinxinzi paid attention to his change. The two started chatting casually. Guwen brought up the Star Sea congregations. Xian Tianyi had already returned to the Supreme Sect, and Hao and Leah had also left the Star Sea congregations. Although there was still cooperation between the Supreme Sect and the Star Sea congregations, the latter was rarely mentioned within the Supreme Sect. Yu Inying came from the Star Sea congregations, but since coming to the Supreme Sect, she had never gone back. In the past, Guwen was wary her heavenly demon identity would cause trouble, but now it didn't matter. The silent destruction domain was full of heavenly demons, and Yu Inying's karma was not as significant as Long Qing's. "Do you want to cultivate?" Guwen suddenly asked. The reason Yu Inying couldn't break through was due to the suppression from her heavenly demon karma. Her past life might have been afraid of being discovered, so her reincarnation couldn't break through to a higher realm. With Gu An's current capabilities, he could erase the karmic restrictions within her. Yu Inying glanced at Guwen and said, "Of course I want to, But my identity is special, I cannot cultivate. What if I could help you? When Yu Yingying heard this, her eyes filled with depth, she shook her head and said, "No need, I will just live out this life honestly and reincarnate sooner. I don't want to become a disaster." After hearing this, Guwen fell into silence, no longer speaking. "Why don't you ask me why I think I am a disaster?" Yu Yingying said discontentedly. "This guy is quite good at talking to others, so why is it always awkward with her?" Guwen turned his head to look at her, asking, "Is there a need to ask?" This rhetorical question annoyed Yu Yingying so much that she lunged at him, arms flailing. The two playfully scuffled all the way to a forest, where the grass was covered in snow. Long Qing was practicing his fist technique in the snow. Long Qing, 82 years old, looked very young and robust. Each punch he threw carried great force. Seeing Guwen and Yu Yingying arrive, Long Qing revealed a smile and greeted them. Before he was 4 years old, an Exen had taken care of him, and after that, it was Yu Yingying who raised him. In his heart, Yu Yingying was like a mother to him, whom he respected deeply, and Guwen even felt that in his heart, Yu Yingying held the highest esteem. "Master, godmother, how is this set of fist techniques?" Long Qing said, then began throwing punches. Guwen and Yu Yingying stood side by side, watching his technique. The whistling of his robes swishing filled the forest. Yu Yingying watched Long Qing's form, her face filled with pride. In her heart, Long Qing was also her child. Since Long Qing's arrival, she was no longer melancholic and lived every day fully, looking forward to the day Long Qing would make a name for himself. Guwen, on the other hand, compared Long Qing with others of his age, such as Yang Jian. In terms of physical strength, Long Qing was a notch above, but his reaction speed was slower than Yang Jian's, perhaps related to cultivation level. For Long Qing to have such strength without spiritual power was already remarkable. After Long Qing finished demonstrating his fist technique, he turned around and approached Guwen and Yu Yingying, raising his fist. "I feel like I can already spar with those in the nascent soul realm. Master, how about I spar with you?" Seeing his spirited appearance, Guwen couldn't help but laugh. Yu Yingying glared at Long Qing. "Don't be disrespectful. Are you challenging your master? Is it because I haven't hit you for a long while, and you've forgotten my teachings?" Hearing this, Long Qing quickly explained, "It's just a spar, stopping as soon as contact is made. Mainly because there are no other cultivators in the nascent soul realm in the Medicine Valley, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to stir up trouble in the inner sect. It's fine, come on." Guwen smiled. Hearing this made Long Qing beam, and he quickly thanked him. Yu Yingying looked at Guwen, nervously saying, "This kid doesn't know his own strength, you need to be careful." Guwen shrugged. "Please, I was once a Golden List genius." The Golden List and Celestial List established by the Supreme Sect were still authoritative. Each generation of Golden List geniuses attracted geniuses from all over the continent to compete, although Guwen never participated again. Hearing this, Yu Yingying immediately stepped aside. Long Qing stood about 10 paces away, warming up. He was very excited. He had long wanted to test Guwen's capabilities. In the Third Medicine Valley, there had always been a legend that Guwen was formidable. Although he couldn't compare to Immortal Path great cultivators like the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord or Shinshinzi, in his own realm, Guwen was undoubtedly strong. Guwen held the fate-determining pen, waving Long Qing over. Long Qing immediately advanced, lunging toward Guwen in one swift step. So fast, Yu Yingying couldn't keep up with Long Qing's speed, and her pupils dilated dramatically. Long Qing threw a punch, like a sea dragon emerging from the abyss, with an explosive sonic boom. Guwen reached out with his hand, using the fate-determining pen to block Long Qing's fist so it couldn't reach his chest. Long Qing's face changed dramatically. His right arm couldn't push any further. At that moment he felt Guwen's formidable presence, as unshakable as a mountain. His biggest reliance was his physical strength, and when his strength was far inferior to his opponent's, how could he not panic? Guwen's mouth curved into a smile. His right hand holding the fate-determining pen suddenly lifted, lifting Long Qing into the midair. He then swiftly raised his leg and kicked. Bang! Long Qing's chest was struck. His eyes bulged, his consciousness briefly blank. Everything happened very quickly, and throughout the process, Yu Yingying didn't see how Guan had made his move. She only saw Long Qing lunging at Guan, then being kicked away. By the time she reacted, Long Qing had crashed into a large tree, shaking the accumulated snow off the branches, nearly burying him. Yu Yingying glared at Guan and said, "Why did you hit so hard?" With that, she quickly ran toward Long Qing. Guan, feeling helpless, thought to himself, "You were worried I'd get hurt by him earlier, so why do you get to play the good person now?" With Yu Yingying's help, Long Qing sat up. He opened his eyes, looking ahead at Guan. For some reason, he suddenly felt awe. Guan's figure in his eyes seemed invincible. Even his second master, Shen Xinzi, couldn't evoke this feeling in him. As the heavenly demons approached in large numbers, the seven suns outside were also disturbed, the mysterious creatures within each awakened, watching the heavenly demons, ready for battle. Chapter 367. I want to become an immortal. I want to establish the heavenly court. Heavenly Phoenix Mountain had always been associated with legends of the phoenix, and Tian Yao's original form was a special bird, harboring a mysterious flame within her body, which led Guan to speculate about her connection with the legendary phoenix. "Master, what are you looking at?" Tian Yao asked nervously. Tian Qing and Tian Bai looked up at the sky and saw nothing, which made them anxious. Could there be something invisible to them that had infiltrated the outer world cave? Guan's gaze shifted to Tian Yao. He saw the causal links related to the phoenix on her, which, while faint, were indeed there, proving that Tian Yao was a descendant of the phoenix. He was not afraid of the phoenix coming after them because the causal connection was too weak. Guan had been unable to detect it even in the divine thought true immortal realm before, indicating that Tian Yao was separated from the phoenix by a vast expanse of time. That phoenix was just a carefree primordial immortal in terms of cultivation. Guan spoke, "Do not worry, I was just looking at your ancestor. The reason for your unease is because your ancestor is restless, and it's affecting you through your bloodline." Ancestor? With both her parents deceased, Tian Yao had long regarded Guan as her only support. Hearing now of the existence of an ancestor, how could she remain indifferent? She opened her mouth but eventually fell silent. Curious, Tianqing asked, "Master, who is her ancestor, and what is their cultivation level?" Tian Bai also looked at Guan, her large eyes filled with anticipation. Guan counter-asked, "Do you still remember the legend of Heavenly Phoenix Mountain?" At this remark, Tian Yao's expression changed. Anticipation, nervousness, resentment, various emotions flashed through her eyes. For this moment, she seemed unlike her usual naive and romantic self. Could the miss be a descendant of the phoenix? Tian Bai gasped, eyes wide. Guan smiled and nodded, saying, "However, the bloodline has been diluted over who knows how many generations, and the descendants of that phoenix are beyond count." He wasn't joking. Following the causal thread of the phoenix, he saw the myriad causalities throughout the world related to it, with countless descendants like Tian Yao, even the ones in the sea. After hearing these words, Tian Yao seemed to shed a burden, visibly relieved, and a smile appeared on her face. Guan looked at her and asked with a smile, "Were you afraid just now?" Tian Yao nodded, "I don't want any ancestor. I just want to be with you, Master. When I was imprisoned by the Heaven Phoenix Demon Mother, when I was hunted, no ancestor showed up." Knowing about the existence of an ancestor, her heart was more filled with worry and fear. She was afraid that Guan might send her to that ancestor. Guan moved forward, rubbed her head and laughed. "What are you thinking? How could I possibly abandon you? Even if the phoenix came for you, I wouldn't agree. I've raised you for so many years. How could it be for nothing?" Hearing this, Tian Yao's smile brightened. In reality, if she wanted to leave, Guan wouldn't stop her. Now he was powerful enough not to fear exposing the outer world cave. But he feared that saying he was willing to let Tian Yao go would instead make her anxious. Tianqing and Tianbai didn't think too much. They were more curious about how powerful the phoenix was. Don't ask any more. The phoenix is definitely powerful. Be careful or it might invade your dreams and devour you. Guwen hummed, frightening the two, and they dared not ask further questions. It wasn't until noon that Guwen left. He went to the North Sea Mountain, where, as the mountain god, he met with Sage Xianmiao. Sage Xianmiao had grown accustomed to a life away from worldly affairs, spending his days tending flowers and herbs, content and at peace, occasionally discussing the paths with passing cultivators, a life he found pleasant enough. When Guwen, transformed into a small mountain god figure, approached him, he was no longer as constrained as he had been hundreds of years ago. He stood up and bowed. Guwen sat on the eaves and asked, "Have you encountered any confusion in your recent cultivation?" Though the lifespan offerings from the mountain god temple weren't much, Sage Xianmiao's sincerity touched him, so he was willing to give guidance on cultivation. Sage Xianmiao shook his head and smiled, "Not at the moment." He looked up at the mountain god on the eaves, hesitated for a moment, and asked, "In your view, do the immortal dynasty and holy court qualify as immortals?" This question he had long wanted to ask but feared offending. The methods by which the founder of the immortal dynasty bestowed blessings on all beings had shocked him, overturning his imagination. In his view, not even a mountain god could achieve that. Now that he heard the immortal dynasty and holy court were about to go to war, it left him with complex feelings. How could immortals quarrel over power and profit like mortals? If the immortal dynasty and holy court were not truly immortals but merely powerful beings, why should humans be stronger than immortals? Various confusions took root in Sage Xianmiao's mind, making him even more eager for answers. Gu, legs crossed, looked down at Sage Xianmiao. His eyes, hidden beneath the mask, were so profound as he asked, "What do you think an immortal should be like?" "Like you, protecting the common folk without being swayed by worldly interests." "If that's the case, why ask a question to which you already know the answer?" Sage Xianmiao frowned, unsure how to express himself. Guwen asked, "Do you think they are stronger than me, making you unsure of who the true immortal is?" Sage Xianmiao nodded, watching Guwen nervously, fearful of offending the mountain god. "Have you considered what it means to cultivate with me? If you are so fixated on immortals, why not think about becoming one yourself?" Faced with the mountain god's inquiry, Sage Xianmiao's eyes widened, and he asked in astonishment, "How could I possibly become an immortal?" "Your confusion is the confusion of the entire world. What you see might not be correct. The world is waiting for the true immortal to appear. Why couldn't you be that immortal?" Guwen said meaningfully. In fact, he was bluffing, wanting to keep Sage Xianmiao focused on cultivation. Over the years, whenever someone came by, Sage Xianmiao would zealously preach about the mountain god's power and compassion, leading to more and more people calling mentally for the mountain god's help when in distress. Though Guwen paid no attention, those people's hopes formed a source of power similar to Qi fortune, which he called desire power. Perhaps the true path for an immortal required walking the way of desire power, to truly feel the suffering of all beings. However, Guwen's pursuit wasn't immortality, he sought longevity. If Sage Xianmiao so desired to be an immortal, Guwen wouldn't mind nurturing him to become a true immortal. To become an immortal, the most crucial aspect is the ability to save the common folk. Simply having a good heart isn't enough. After listening to Guwen, Sage Xianmiao fell silent, his heartbeat accelerating. Guwen leaped down from the eaves, walked out of the courtyard, and went to pick medicinal herbs, with Sage Xianmiao hurriedly following. Can someone like me really become an immortal?" Sage Xianmiao asked cautiously. Without turning his head, Guwen replied, "Immortality isn't about high status. With the right intention, it can be achieved." Sage Xianmiao's expression changed, deeply moved by these words. After a long time, the two returned to the courtyard. Guwen was about to leave when Sage Xianmiao suddenly looked up at him on the eaves and said, "Mountain God, I've figured it out. I want to become an immortal. I want to establish the heavenly court." Guwen stopped walking, turned his head to look at him, and asked in surprise, The heavenly court? That's the celestial authority from Journey to the West. In the book, the celestial beings fight demons and control the weather for the sake of the common folk. Although the heavenly court in the story has its flaws, at least they care about the common folk. Sage Xian Miao spoke earnestly, and by the end, his facial expression turned determined, his eyes gleaming brightly. Guan smiled and said nothing more, then disappeared from the eaves. Sage Xian Miao, filled with grand ambitions, sat cross-legged, deciding to cultivate diligently from now on, not to disappoint the mountain god's faith in him. Spring arrived. This new year was livelier than usual because the Supreme Sect invited many schools to join the Spring Festival celebration. The Third Medicine Valley was festively decorated and noisy, all disciples wearing smiles. As night fell, on a temporary stage, disciples took turns performing, keeping the festive atmosphere lively and ebullient. Guan swayed his bowl of wine, his gaze inevitably drifting towards the night sky. Stars filled the sky, glittering and beautiful, as if even the heavens were celebrating. Meanwhile, in outer heaven, the tension between the sects of the great heavenly spirit land and the heavenly demons was escalating. Guan scanned the area. There were more than 1,000,000 heavenly demons, the weakest of them in the loose immortal realm, including 2 divine thought true immortals. This was why the great heavenly spirit land dared not make a move rashly. He saw cultivators from the holy court negotiating with a divine thought true immortal realm heavenly demon. It seemed that the heavenly demons were the stronger side. The current holy court was not as formidable as the legends suggested. The heavenly demons were also testing the stance of Shengtian, while the holy court side was evasive, clearly hiding something. According to Guan's judgment, a great battle between the two sides would soon erupt. Guan had no intention of getting involved, given the immortal dynasty and holy court were handling things. Having just made a breakthrough, he wasn't eager to collect lifespans and preferred to lay low. Long Qing came over, clamoring to have a drinking contest with his master. How could Guan indulge him? He welcomed all challengers. The wine in Medicine Valley was spiritual wine, and even cultivators could get drunk if they had too much. It wasn't until late into the night that the Third Medicine Valley finally quieted down. The next morning, Guan left the Third Medicine Valley. He arrived at Mystic Valley and after chatting with the disciples for 30 minutes, he entered the 8 Sina Caves. From a distance, he saw a huge creature lying under the green vine tree. It was a black sea dragon. Sky Dragon, Void Crossing Realm 5th Level 387/8000/18,000. Guan looked at the Sky Dragon's maximum lifespan and felt slightly disappointed. It seemed the Sky Dragon had not encountered much fortune over the years. The sea dragon lying under the tree sensed something, opened its eyes, and upon seeing Guan, rapidly raised its head. "Master!" The sea dragon cried excitedly and then rushed towards Guan, stirring up a gust of wind that shook the surrounding flora. Its body quickly shrank to only 2 meters in length, trying to jump into Guan's arms, but Guan pressed down its dragon head with the fate-determining pen, keeping it at bay. "Why are you here?" Guan asked. The sea dragon chuckled. "Ancient Sky Sect came to participate in the Supreme Sect's Spring Festival, and I sneaked along, wanting to come see you." Guan, unamused, said, "You are the holy beast of the Ancient Sky Sect. Do you think you could really sneak along without notice?" He had already sensed someone approaching the 8 Sina Caves. He wasn't angry, even somewhat excited. Chapter 368. Eliminating the backer. I am now at the Void Crossing Realm level. They won't be able to detect me. Sky Dragon said proudly. Despite being over 300 years old, its voice had not lost its youthful tone, sounding like a young boy. Guan did not argue, nor did he mention that someone was sneaking into the 8 Sina Caves. He sized up Sky Dragon and said, "Are you accustomed to staying with the Ancient Sky Sect? If you want to come back, I can talk to the Supreme Sect." With the current power of the Supreme Sect, wanting to take the Holy Beast from the Ancient Sky Sect would be no difficult task. Sky Dragon replied, "It's quite good, I won't come back." The Supreme Sect is much stronger than the Ancient Sky Sect. The status I would have upon my return would certainly not compare to my former one. Guwen smiled to himself, silently thinking what a foolish dragon it was, and thought to himself, then just stay in the Ancient Sky Sect. He would not go out of his way to reveal his strength to Sky Dragon. This was also his attitude toward his disciples. Only those who sincerely and insistently wished to stay by his side would he cultivate seriously. Just at that moment, footsteps were heard from the distant cave entrance, startling both Guwen and Sky Dragon as they turned to look. They saw a figure emerge from the cave mouth, a man in black with handsome features, holding a folding fan in his hand and with a palm-sized black spider perched on his shoulder. He looked at Guwen and Sky Dragon from afar, a mocking smile on his face, and his gaze then shifted to the green vine tree, his eyes betraying a greedy light. Although Guwen could see through his cultivation level, he still could not help but send out a lifespan detection towards him. Demon Chaser, Mystic Heart Realm, Second Layer 2107/4600/7500, a 2,000-year-old monster. Guwen looked forward to his next move while maintaining a vigilant expression on his face. Is it you? How did you? Sky Dragon's eyes widened in astonishment. Guwen saw through cause and effect, destiny, and noted the intersection between Sky Dragon and Demon Chaser. Demon Chaser had hidden his identity and joined the Ancient Sky Sect, had visited Sky Dragon, and at that time, Demon Chaser had disguised himself as a nascent soul-level cultivator, treating Sky Dragon with utmost respect. If it weren't for me, do you think you could have come here? Demon Chaser sneered disparagingly. He stepped forward, the aura of the Mystic Heart Realm erupting, startling Sky Dragon, who quickly revealed its true form to stand in front of Guwen. You are no match for me, and if we start fighting, this place will be exposed. Demon Chaser said coldly, his gaze fixated on the green vine tree, his eyes becoming brighter and brighter. Who exactly are you? How can you possess such a cultivation level? Sky Dragon asked through gritted teeth. The Void-Crossing Realm and the Mystic Heart Realm were separated by the Unification Realm, and facing Demon Chaser, Sky Dragon felt immense pressure. Guwen then began to probe Demon Chaser's cause and effect. Demon Chaser's background was rather profound, with a Mahayana realm master who was seriously injured, hiding in a cave. His master came from a demon sect at sea, with the highest cultivator within reaching the loose immortal realm, incidentally Demon Chaser's martial master. His loose immortal martial master was a traitor from an ancient family lineage. Although a traitor, his brother was still present, and the two shared a close relationship. Demon Chaser's martial master often sought his brother's help when encountering insurmountable troubles. And the strongest person from this ancient family line reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. It's worth mentioning that this family's chief fortune was related to another great heaven and earth that Guwen detected during his previous breakthrough. That is to say, the origin of this family line came from another great heaven and earth. Guwen was not fearful. That great heaven and earth was not substantially stronger than the great heavenly spirit land, moreover, they were far apart. He merely marveled at the complexity of Demon Chaser's cause and effect. Becoming enemies with Demon Chaser could easily entangle one in a series of cause and effect grievances. Defeat the underling, then the superior, and after the superior, the elder. Not long after, Demon Chaser approached Sky Dragon and said, "Kneel down. Submit to me, this is your only way to live." His tone was incredibly domineering, brooking no dissent. Guwen stepped to the side to let Demon Chaser see him, playing with the fate-determining pen in his right hand, and inquired with an almost smiling tone, "What about me? Do I have a way to live?" Demon Chaser looked at Guwen, and Guwen's smile annoyed him. He felt provoked. Demon Chaser has developed hostility towards you, seeks to kill you. Do you wish to perform lifespan detection on him? Seeing the prompt before him, Guwen couldn't help but shake his head with a chuckle. His movement caused a chill to flash in Demon Chaser's eyes, who then coldly said, You must die, perfect to feed the green vine tree." Guwen asked, "How do you know the green vine tree feeds on flesh and blood? What is your relationship with the Thousand Autumn Pavilion?" He knew the truth, of course. but wanted to ask one more question. After all, there was no hurry at the moment. Demon Chaser suddenly transformed into a wisp of demonic chi and dissipated, startling Sky Dragon greatly. It looked around instinctively and then saw Demon Chaser appear beside Guin. Demon Chaser's eyes widened in disbelief, his right hand trembling as it was blocked by the fate-determining pen. He was not only unable to harm Guin but also unable to retreat, as an invisible force had rooted him to the spot. How is this possible? Who exactly are you? Demon Chaser asked, his voice quivering with fear. Guin looked down on him and asked, "Since I can't grant you a way to live, do you have any last words?" The sentence sent shivers down Demon Chaser's spine. "If you dare kill me, my master will not let you go." Demon Chaser gritted his teeth. Guin curiously asked, "Your master is just at the Mahayana realm, and he's gravely wounded too. How can he not let me go?" As soon as he spoke, Demonic Chaser's pupils shook violently, and fear and despair enveloped his heart. He seemed to remember something, hastily saying, "My master comes from an immortal path sect. Spare me, and well call it quits." Demon Chaser harbors deep-seated hatred toward you. Do you wish to perform lifespan detection on him? The hostility has even increased. Guin looked at the prompt in front of him, completely unmoved, as he had no intention of sparing Demon Chaser. Now, so be it, more deaths to come. Guin withdrew his arm, a terrifying force pressing Demon Chaser to kneel before him with a thud. Sky Dragon gaped, staring blankly at Guin. Memories from a long time ago surfaced in its mind. Guin was holding the fate-determining pen, waving it through the air, and with one stroke, a golden trail appeared before him, floating in the air. The golden light shone on Demon Chaser's face, leaving it completely pale. Guin wrote unhurriedly, forming the character for death. As the final stroke completed, Demon Chaser's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Guin with a mixture of shock and fear, and asked through clenched teeth, "What have you done to me?" "You have successfully taken 67 years of lifespan from Lingchuanjinren, Mahayana realm, 9 layers. You have successfully taken 380 years of lifespan from Zhonglu, Lu's immortal realm, 4th layer. You have successfully taken 512 years of lifespan from Su Tianxing, Lu's immortal realm, 7th layer." One prompt after another appeared before Guin, and he glanced at Demon Chaser and said indifferently, "I haven't done anything to you. I've simply erased all the backing you could call upon." Demon Chaser's eyes bulged, and he yelled almost manically, "What kind of joke is this?" Before he could finish speaking, an indescribable panic enveloped Demon Chaser's heart. For some reason, he suddenly felt as though he was abandoned by the entire world. A panic unlike any other, an unspeakable palpitation that agitated his thoughts. Chapter 369. Descending into the world. Watching the Demon Chaser about to crumble, Guin couldn't be bothered to explain. With a wave of the fate-determining pen, he turned the Demon Chaser to ashes that rapidly vanished. Throughout the process, the Sky Dragon didn't speak a word, just staring blankly at Guin until the Demon Chaser disappeared. Only then did it snap back to reality. Swallowing hard, it looked at Guin with eyes filled with fear. Guin's strength had exceeded its imagination, and it hadn't been in Guin's company for many years. Reuniting after a long separation and witnessing such methods, how could it not be afraid? Seeing its expression, Guin found it amusing. He suddenly became interested and stared expressionlessly at the Sky Dragon. The look in his eyes made the Sky Dragon even more afraid, causing it to back away subconsciously. "About today's affair," Guin said hauntingly, deliberately suspending his tone. The Sky Dragon hurriedly said, "I definitely want to speak of it. Please trust me, master." Guin twirled the fate-determining pen in his hand, his lips turning up into a smile. "This pen of mine can kill people from a very, very far distance. If you break our agreement, you understand what I mean." The Sky Dragon, terrified, its dragon body trembling, kept giving assurances. Guin turned and walked toward the green vine tree, his main purpose for taking action today being to confirm whether the fate-determining pen could indeed seize lifespan. The result was very satisfying, just as he had wished. The fate-determining pen was his own creation, not employing any external object. In the future, seizing lifespans with the fate-determining pen would be even easier for him. Dealing with the demon chaser this time, Guin had slain over 100, all directly related to the demon chaser. Sooner or later, they would be entangled in this web of cause and effect. Guin essentially allowed them to meet their end early. This was the way of cause and effect. To be able to glimpse into the process of the evolution of all things was also the foundation of participating in the way of destiny. The way of cause and effect was profound and unfathomable. Guin had just begun to delve into it and already possessed the power that not even gods or demons could predict. This action had earned him over 40,000 years of lifespan, which, to him at this moment, wasn't significant. The sky dragon shrank in size, cautiously approaching Guin. "Master, you are the sword venerable Fudao of the Supreme Sect, right?" the sky dragon asked cautiously. Without turning back, Guin said, "The less you know, the safer you'll be, understand?" Startled by these words, the sky dragon nodded hastily. Together, the man and the dragon reached the green vine tree. The great battle outside was even more imposing. Ancient immortal emperor of the immortal dynasty and the saint ancestor of the holy court joined forces against the free immortal heavenly demons, deadlocked in combat. Divine thought true immortals showcased their divine skills, and even the 7 beings hidden inside the sun came out to join the battle. Phoenix, True Dragon, Qilin, White Tiger, Shen Turtle, Green Bird, Kuin. Their opponents were also colossal creatures, fierce beasts from the silent destruction domain. The scope of the battle quickly expanded, with the great heavenly spirit land at the center. Fighting figures filled every direction. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor stepped out from his house, his gaze calm as he looked up at the sky. At that moment, Long Qing passed right by him, his eyes fixated on the distance, brows tightly furrowed. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor's gaze fell upon him, and he suddenly furrowed his brow. After the descent of the heavenly demons, Long Qing was overcome with uncontrollable irritation, which was why he kept moving around, trying to dispel the emotions in his heart. Why is the cause and effect on his body changing? Wondered the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor with surprise. And at this time of all times, this child must definitely be related to the heavenly demons. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor developed an even greater interest in Long Qing, feeling previously that Long Qing had an unusual physique. Before long, a fierce wind blew from afar, a tempest stirred up by the great battle. Guin sat at his desk, holding the Green Hero Travelogue while using his divine thought to observe the entire world. The foundation of the great heavenly spirit land was truly strong. In such a short time, many divine thought true immortals, Tao void mysterious immortals, and divine immortals of wondrous Dharma had emerged. From the current perspective, the heavenly demons couldn't shake the great heavenly spirit land. The battle would end following the outcome of the fierce conflict of the free immortals in outer heaven. However, Guin noticed many heavenly demons that descended chose not to fight but to sneak into the mortal world. Some seized living beings, some disintegrated, merging into the reincarnation rules, and were then sucked into the reincarnation vortex above. Guin suddenly felt that this batch of heavenly demons was not a united front. Those who had not fought were entangled in a multitude of cause and effect with Long Qing, and were very likely here to find him. His divine thought then landed on the Moonfall Divine Lake. Moonfall Divine Lake was also experiencing an attack by the heavenly demons, their situation even more dire because a divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm-level heavenly demon was lurking around. The reason Guin was paying attention to the Moonfall Divine Lake was mainly because of Zhu Shi with the Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body. Chapter 370. The Great Emperor of Calamity, Juin world nightfall descended, and the woods fell into complete silence, devoid of any insect song. Zhu Shi stood up, holding a lantern in her left hand and clenching a sword in her right, her gaze nervously sweeping the surroundings. Suddenly, she heard the sound of the wind and instinctively turned her head to look. Then sounds of the wind came from another direction before she could turn again, and soon wind noises erupted from all directions. A gust carrying leaves assaulted her face, causing her eyes to widen in alarm. Far in the third Medicine Valley, Guwen watched this scene unfold without intervening. Zhu Shi was no match for the loose immortal realm, losing consciousness immediately upon the other's attack. The attacker was a female heavenly demon seeking to possess her body, but just as its soul began to infiltrate, the demon sensed a terrifying devouring force. The heavenly demon instinctively tried to escape, but only part of its soul body flew out. The lower half was sucked in, unable to withdraw. Guwen raised an eyebrow as he observed, how much spiritual energy had Zhu Shi consumed? At 23, even with copious quantities of spiritual energy consumed, she shouldn't be able to shake a loose immortal. Could it be she harbored an even greater secret? No matter how the female heavenly demon struggled, she could not break free from the devouring force inside Zhu Shi, and soon, she was devoured. Zhu Shi then collapsed to the ground, and the woods returned to tranquility. It wasn't until an ancient hour later that Zhu Shi opened her eyes with a confused gaze. Upon regaining her consciousness, she swiftly scrambled to her feet and warily surveyed her surroundings. Seeing this, Guwen withdrew his divine thought. This woman was no simple character. She might become a renowned figure in the future. Guwen had no intention of inviting or accepting her as a disciple. Mere curiosity prevailed. In the future, it would be worthwhile to observe Zhu Zai's life trajectory, reminiscent of binge-watching a drama in his previous life. Guwen smiled and then turned his attention to reading the Green Hero travelogue seriously. The moon set and the sun rose. A new day arrived, and the Taizong continent resumed its regular serenity. As the disciples gathered for morning exercises, they all discussed the distant battle of the previous day, curious about what had happened. When Guwen was practicing, he used his divine thought to survey the world. Many regions were still heavily afflicted by heavenly demons, but fortunately, the Holy Court and the Immortal Dynasty were quicker to act, constantly exorcising demons and providing rescue. In this calamity afflicting all beings, the Immortal Dynasty showed formidable prowess, quickly catching up to the Holy Court. As they saved more and more lives, Guwen distinctly felt the chi fortune of the Immortal Dynasty growing. This catastrophe actually presented an opportunity for the Immortal Dynasty. Guwen spotted Enhao's figure. He was observing the battle, for the weakest of the heavenly demons also had immortal path cultivation, far beyond his current capability. While observing the world, Xin Xinzi returned. Many disciples looked towards him, feeling that he must know what happened the previous day. Not until the morning exercises concluded did Long Qing eagerly rush to Xin Xinzi, asking why he had left. Yesterday, heavenly demons descended. Fortunately, the crisis on this continent has been resolved, Xin Xinzi replied, though his complexion appeared unnatural. The battle from the day before triggered some foreign memories, leading him to suspect they were from his past life. He had long been aware of his identity as a reincarnated heavenly demon, but through the years he had resolved to embrace this fact. He believed that with a determined will, he would not become a demon. He even entertained the delusion of using his identity to convert heavenly demons. Heavenly demon? Long Qing's eyes widened. Shen Xinzi began to describe the terror of the heavenly demons, leaving Long Qing trembling with fear. From afar, Guwen watched the scene with amusement. Two reincarnated heavenly demons discussing the threats of their kin, neither aware of the other's true identity. He gestured to the blood prison great saint and then walked towards the outer gate city. Although the battle in outer heaven hadn't ended, he had lost interest in it for the time being, as it seemed inevitable that the heavenly demons would be repelled. He decided to visit the outer gate city for a change of scenery. Elsewhere, 3 Pure Ones Mountain. Leah sat meditating at the edge of a cliff, gazing up at the sky, seemingly lost in thought. A soul approached, the ancestor of Li family who had once been hidden within Li Ya's body. What are you thinking about? The ancestor of Li family asked as he came beside Li Ya. Ancestor, what is like beyond the heavens? And how many levels are there in the immortal path? Li Ya asked softly. The ancestor of Li family replied, somewhat annoyed, how would I know? You have already surpassed me in your lifetime. I am waiting for you to show me a broader world. Upon hearing this, Li Ya cracked a smile and then stood up, stretching languidly. Well, get ready, as I will soon leave the mountain to seek fortune. I've realized that traveling is necessary. Secluded cultivation alone makes for slow progress in raising cultivation level. At this rate, I'm afraid I'll fall further behind in how. Hearing Li Ya's words, the ancestor of Li family showed a smile, saying, I am indeed curious to see how formidable the divine exotic city is. The corners of Li Ya's mouth lifted, his eyes filled with spirit. The saint ancestor said that an era of prodigy competition is nigh. I cannot be absent. As he spoke, he lifted his right hand, where a white flame blazed in his palm. The ancestor of Li family looked at Li Ya, stroking his beard and smiling, filled with emotion. In just 400 years, this young man had achieved so much, it was hard to imagine the heights he would reach in the future. Ancestor of Li family recalled the scene of meeting Li Ya, his smile deepened. In the cosmos, scorching heat waves devastated the starry space. Ancient immortal emperor and saint ancestor paused, their gazes focused on a distant silhouette. Enshrouded in black fog, the figure seemed like a demon lord emerging from the abyss, a terrifying visage. His white hair flowed freely, crowned with a pair of forward-curving horns, his face pallid, with pupilless eyes. He wore a black feathered great robe, beneath which gleamed a chainmail shimmering with cold light. He was none other than the great Emperor of Calamity, a free immortal among the heavenly demons. Gazing at the calamitous great Emperor, both the ancient immortal Emperor and Saint Ancestor had eyes filled with wariness. The two sides had been clashing for months. The ancient immortal Emperor and Saint Ancestor, 2 against 1, couldn't gain the upper hand, managing only to halt the great Emperor of Calamity's advancement and prevent him from stepping into the great expanse of the great heavenly spirit land. The heavenly demon's essence has dwindled to a mere 10th, yet you persist with your purpose? The ancient immortal Emperor asked with an icy tone. The corners of the calamitous great Emperor's mouth curled up, revealing a sinister and odd smile. He said, Do you really think I allowed the heavenly demons to invade the great heavenly spirit land just to kill some inconsequential mortal spirits? At these words, both the ancient immortal Emperor and Saint Ancestor's expressions changed dramatically. Before they could interrogate him further, the calamitous great Emperor was engulfed by the surrounding black fog, which churned violently and began to expand rapidly. The ancient immortal Emperor and Saint Ancestor immediately responded, casting their mighty mana upon the black fog, but they could not dissipate it. During the surging process, the black fog coalesced into a huge black sphere that, from a distance, resembled a black hole. What kind of divine skill is this? The ancient immortal Emperor asked with a grim look on his face. The Saint Ancestor gave no answer. He too couldn't see through it, but a strong sense of unease welled up in his heart. Meanwhile, in the Taizong continent, within a subsect of the Supreme Sect, in a courtyard, Gu Wen was drinking with Yi Lan and Zhen Qin. Zhen Qin was discussing recent major events in the subsect. An elder oppressed a disciple, leading to the elder's sudden and gruesome death, causing a stir throughout the sect. Zhen Qin had the makings of a storyteller, with a tone that could emotionally engage listeners. Gu Wen was quite cooperative, showing a nervous expression at critical moments of the tale. Yi Lan, on the other hand, watched Gu Wen and was occasionally amused by his expressions. Suddenly, Zhen Qin stood up, drew her sword and pointed it to one side, her eyes wide as she said, "That's exactly what I did, holding my sword to that man's neck, questioning him why he would harm his own master. Despite the evidence in front of him, he was still defiant, refusing to admit anything." Gu Wen was about to speak when he suddenly sensed something. his eyes subtly shifting. Zhen Qin was about to continue her story when her expression changed abruptly. Not only her, but Yi Lan's expression also changed dramatically. "What's going on? Why do I feel like something is grabbing me?" exclaimed Zhen Qin in horror, instinctively looking at Yi Lan. Yi Lan's body trembled as she spoke through gritted teeth. "Me too, I can't break free." In Gu An's eyes, a mysterious causality force intertwined around Yi Lan and Zhen Qin. It wasn't just the two of them. Within the subsect, many others were entangled by this force of causality. He looked up to see the sky, which appeared a magnificent blue, but through his eyes, there appeared an intricate black net across the sky, beyond the reach of mortal beings. This black net seemed to connect with countless souls in the world. Gu N's divine thought followed the black net and saw the enormous black sphere in the universe. In that instant, he understood the calamitous great emperor's divine skill. No wonder there were so many heavenly demons reincarnating and seizing bodies. It was to merge into the rules of heaven and earth within the great heavenly spirit land. Watching the trend of causality force exerted by the calamitous great emperor, it seemed he intended to pull many beings of the great heavenly spirit land into that black sphere. Guan saw that Long Qing was also entwined by this force of causality. He immediately stood up and, feigning panic, grabbed Yi Lan's shoulder to ask her what was wrong. "Elder brother, get away quickly," Yi Lan said through clenched teeth, unable to shake his grip nor stand up. "What's happening? How could I possibly abandon you?" Guan exclaimed anxiously. Yi Lan was about to reply when suddenly the world spun around them. The same sensation hit Zhen Qin. Then, Guan and the two women vanished into thin air. At this moment, countless beings disappeared without a trace, causing an earth-shattering uproar within the Supreme Sect subsect. Yi Lan clenched her eyes shut, feeling as if she was falling, a sensation even she, in the divinity transformation realm, found extremely unbearable. As she continued to fall, she gradually regained control of her body. Soon she felt her feet touch the ground. A hand grasped her right hand, immediately calming her heart. This was her elder brother's hand. She knew every line on his palms, there could be no mistake. She then felt her eyes could open and immediately did so. What appeared before her was a sky shrouded in crimson, with countless figures descending from above like a torrential downpour. Guan and Zhen Qin stood beside her, atop a mountain peak, all looking at the sky in shock. "Where is this place?" Zhen Qin asked with trembling voice, her beautiful eyes wide. She followed the direction the figures were falling and saw a series of peaks stretching endlessly into the gloom. Once all the figures landed, the crimson sky revealed a pair of immense eyes, those of the calamitous great emperor, looking down upon all beings within the world, as if searching for something. "Mortal spirits of great heavenly spirit land, this realm created by this emperor is Juyuan world. No one can save you here. However, this emperor is merciful and will offer you a sliver of hope." The voice of the calamitous great emperor resonated, like a dull thunder, echoing through the heavens and earth. Chapter 371 Heavenly Tao and Heavenly Demon Long Qing stood on the hillside, gazing up at the huge eye in the sky, his face full of fear. Other people were also on the hillside, all of them were disciples of the Supreme Sect, and an Exen was among them. Every person listening to the words of the great demon emperor felt a chill down their spine, their hearts filled with fear. They had never heard of the Juyuan world, and it was even the first time they had heard the name of the great heavenly spirit land. Within the great heavenly spirit land, there are many heavenly demons reincarnated. They may be your kin or your dear friends. If you want to survive, then kill all the reincarnated heavenly demons. The heavenly demons must do the same, kill off all the creatures of the great heavenly spirit land, and you will regain your freedom, said the great demon emperor, his voice ringing out, tone frosty, filled with a murderous intent. Yi Lan and Zhen Qin frowned upon hearing this, and they instinctively looked around, fearing an attack by a heavenly demon. Guan speculated that the great demon emperor was looking for Long Qing. But why didn't he directly wipe out all the beings that fell into the Jiyuan world? Soon, Guan understood. It was the protection of the heavenly Tao. As the voice of the great demon emperor ceased, Guan felt the presence of many heavenly demons. Those reincarnated began to awaken their heavenly demon origin. As the demonic qi grew, the aura of the heavenly Tao began to emerge from the bodies of the great heavenly spirit land creatures. This so-called heavenly Tao aura was the same as the aura of the layer of light outside the great heavenly spirit land, which prevented beings below heaven and earth flying immortal from flying to outer heaven. In fact, everything in the great heavenly spirit land was infused with heavenly Tao aura, including the other great heaven and earth realms that Guan glimpsed during his breakthrough. The heavenly Tao is omnipresent. This is a force distinct from the Tao, and within it, implicitly lies the will of heaven, referring to the heavenly Tao rules. The creatures from the silent destruction domain are easily distinguishable because they don't have the aura of the heavenly Tao. Their presence is discomforting to beings born under the heavenly Tao, and thus the two factions have been incompatible since ancient times. The great demon emperor was obviously studying the way of cause and effect, fearful of slaughtering too many creatures of the heavenly Tao and suffering a karma rebound. Killing a few creatures of the heavenly Tao, however, was no issue. In the memories of Long Zhan and Lu Han, they had heard mentions of the heavenly Tao, which for cultivators was a vague and elusive legend. Of course, if pushed to the brink, the great demon emperor wouldn't care so much. In her mind, Guan was protected by Sword Venerable Fudao, but whether Sword Venerable Fudao could find the Jiyuan world was not certain, hence, she worried that she wouldn't be able to protect Guan. She would rather die alone than let Guan die before her. Intuition told her that the heavenly demon was absolutely terrifying. She had to go into battle prepared to die, without a trace of carelessness. "Rest assured, I am very strong, I won't hold you back," Guan said seriously, taking out the fate-determining pen. Zhen Qin couldn't help but tease. Being in the nascent soul realm is indeed impressive. Got wings and now looking down on your master's cultivation level? Dare not, dare not. The master and disciple began to banter. Gu Anna's divine thought had already spread out, watching over Ji Xiaoyu and Hao and others, to prevent them from encountering an unbeatable foe. 30 minutes later, Guan and the others from the Supreme Sect gathered, deciding to look for disciples from their own sect. The Jiyuan world was large, but not as incomparably vast as the great heavenly spirit land, so an Xian and the others were not far from them. The disciples of the Supreme Sect pulled into the Jiyuan world numbered only a few dozen, either with extraordinary fates or geniuses. Long Qing's body contained the path of returning primordial spirit strengthened by Guan, and thus he did not awaken to become a heavenly demon. Facing the imminent battle with the heavenly demon, Long Qing was excited. He had long wanted to take on the world, but his master had not allowed it. During flight, a thunderous roar came from afar, startling the disciples of the Supreme Sect into immediately accelerating away from the battle. Guan stood behind Yi Lan, sharing a sword with her, when he spotted a familiar face engaged in the distant battle. The kid was directly using the power of divine exotic city to suppress the heavenly demon, drawing in more of them for a siege. Guan began to watch the battle, wanting to see how much Leia had improved. Time rushed by quickly. An hour later, the Supreme Sect's side finally met up. The forces of causality hadn't scattered their position. "Master!" An Exan, seeing Guan, immediately showed a joyously surprised expression. She swiftly flew by Guan's side, her anxious look swept away, replaced with excitement. Long Qing too flew over, chattering nonstop in excitement. He couldn't wait to fight the heavenly demon. Yi Lan started negotiating with other disciples of the Supreme Sect. Zhen Qin looked at an Exan and Long Qing, her expression odd. Why weren't these two scared at all? It was one thing for Long Qing to be fearless, the young and rash type, but why was an Exan, that girl, getting all excited too?